It's the cold hard truth. Everyone really want to know what's going on with her show. Just get on the air and you will know it's Sandra. The queen of the mile road is here, helping people from everywhere. Get on the phone and you will hear Sandra. Now she will tell you how it goes, but don't you ever step on her toes, 'cause you will hear the cold hard truth from Sandra. They say she's the hero in town, helping people from all around. You get a call, your money is found, it's Sandra. Some will call her late at night just to say that there is a fight, and she will not just leave it alone. She'll get up and call on the phone, and when politics starts on her show, everyone really wants to know the way the things will really go with Sandra. And some will start to criticize, get on the show and tell pure lies, but someday we'll realize it's Sandra. And when they start to argue again, she'll pull the heads to the wind, and soon you will be a friend of Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone wanna hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone wanna hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone got to hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone got to hear from Sandra.
All right, folks. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday. The week went by super quick for me because it was a short week. But anyway, hope that you guys had a fantastic evening. We are here to have some very, very important discussions this morning. So no small talk beforehand. We are simply going to get into it. And I've already got some questions in advance that came in. So we will get to those. Just a little bit of a warning. We are here to learn as much as we can about the new changes as they relate to immigration. And there's quite a few changes. And I just want to ensure that we almost do this segment as a sip and learn segment where we sit back, we listen carefully, take some notes. We've got some slides. We've got the legislation. We've got a lot of things right here. So sit back, take some notes. This is not time for commentary or any of your personal opinions. We can certainly have those discussions a bit later on. So that's how I'm recommending that we handle today's show. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. You know, sometimes we get into learning mode and sometimes it's more of a discussion. This morning, it is learning mode. So listen up, folks. I know a lot of you still struggling some mornings to find the show. Big shout out to Ms. Blondell. Ms. Blondell, I was just listening to your messages, heard that you were a little bit under the weather. I'm so sorry to hear that, but glad you're starting to feel a little bit better. And so we want to ensure that, you know, our seniors in particular can find the show, because sometimes they still are like, where's that show again? Where's the link? We tried to make it as easy for you. I'm going to share the links now in the WhatsApp channel. So if you know someone who enjoys listening to this show, but they can't always find the links, just send it to them directly. That's how we do it. Caymankind. All right, so let's get into it. Let me just grab one little sheet of paper off the printer. Like I said, lots of preparation went into today's program. And of course, we'd like to thank the government for their part. So give me one quick second. Here's an important message from the ESO.
The Economics and Statistics Office, ESO, is currently conducting the annual business surveys until June 12. The surveys collect information to answer questions like, how did the economy perform in 2025? In 2025, how much did foreign companies invest in the Cayman Islands? The surveys include all relevant entities that produce goods and services in the Cayman Islands. The surveys are confidential under the Statistics Act and are exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. Your response matters. Do your part. Fill out and return your survey forms to the ESO. Remember, better data, better decisions, better business. For assistance in filling out the forms or for more information, visit eso.ky or call 244-4676 or 244-4600.
All right, folks, we are back. So please join me this morning in welcoming some guests, some very important guests. Just looking here at my notes. We have in the studio this morning with us, virtual studio, the Honorable Wayne Panton, JP. He is Parliamentary Secretary for the Caymanian Employment and Immigration. He's also serving a dual role for infrastructure, health, environment, and sustainability, as well as financial services and commerce. I guess that's a triple role. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Pleasure to be back on the show with you.
We've missed you.
Been a long time, right?
Yes. Yeah, look like you've been losing a few pounds as well. So looking good.
Oh, Lord.
Take it. Just take it. Take the compliments. All right. We also have sitting next to him, Chief Officer for the Ministry of Caymanian Employment and Immigration, Mr. Wesley Howell. He's certainly no stranger to the program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Sandra, and your listening audience. My inside joke is that when I logged into your studio, my name popped up as Elections Office, which means the last time I was on was over a year ago, because April 30th was a year for that. But I'm a different role today and happy to be here to talk about immigration.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm looking for our third guest, but I don't see Mr. Jeremy Scott there. Is he coming shortly?
He had an emergency this morning, so you have the two of us teaming up.
All right.
Scott won't be joining.
Okay, no worries. This would have actually, I think, been his first time on the program, but we'll get him yet. So we still have two powerhouses in the studio, folks, this morning when it comes to knowledge and information, as we try to digest the changes that are now live as of May the 1st in relation to the immigration legislation, essentially, right? So let's start, I guess, where we can. In terms of maybe, Mr. Panton, this is a question for you. What is the overarching objective of the amendments at this stage? And I do understand that there are more changes to come and they will be phased in, but what is the NCFC government attempting to accomplish?
So, Sandra, I think it has been clear during the election process that the feedback we got from the public and the position taken by the members of the NCFC government has been based on reform around the immigration law provisions. And we have a somewhat unique situation in Cayman where we have problems of success, some would say. And we have a situation where our population has been growing very, very significantly. The numbers of people that have been coming on with PR and with status have been quite high. The Caymanian population has transitioned into basically being a minority in the population number. And there are concerns about that, managing that, making it more sustainable, and ensuring that it works for everybody. It works for the economy, for businesses, and importantly, it works for Caymanians. And we are very determined to ensure that we get that balance right. There is no certainty. We don't have 100% certainty that we will get the balance right instantly or immediately. But what we are committed to do is to make sure that we constantly keep this under review and ensure that we make any adjustments. I mean, during the process, during the discussions, it was quite clear that I think anybody who was watching would have seen that there were lots of discussions about certain areas, and then we did make some sort of 180s and backtrack a bit, and then came out in a position that I think reflects a good compromise and a good balance to ensure that we meet the objectives of improving the system, making it work better for Caymanians and for businesses, because we understand that the two have to work together. The economy is critically important. It creates and provides jobs for Caymanians. It contributes to the effective working of government. So it is absolutely essential that everything works together as well as possible. Now, we do recognize that at times there are elements of competing interests.
Right.
And that's where you have to, you do a little dance and you try to work out how to get the balance right. We clearly, because of changes in circumstances, and perhaps one might argue, less attention paid in the past, we don't think we had the balance quite right. Certainly, this is an attempt to get it right for us today, Cayman circumstances today, and the needs of Caymanians today, the need to be able to provide opportunities for our young people, to be able to provide strength in the economy and get that balance right. So this is an attempt as part of an overall approach to immigration reform for the first time, I think, in 15 years or so now, make changes which address these issues, which address long-standing concerns, which address concerns that have cropped up more recently along the way, and which reflects Cayman's current realities. So I think this is a good place that we're at. A significant effort was put into doing PR around this, explaining it prior to them coming into effect on May 1st. We're now obviously past that, so these provisions are now in force. There are certain transition provisions that CEO Wes can speak to as well, if there are any questions, particularly in that area. But this is I think a good place that we're at, but it reflects our commitment to the country and to our people to ensure that we do our best to get that balance right and to ensure that we have opportunities for Caymanians. And there is further reform to come. We have to deal with the immigration provisions, reform to the immigration point system, and that is in process and will be coming along in the coming months. Related to the human resource aspect, we also have reform around the national pension rules that we need to get done, and some additional amendments on the labor side as well, to ensure that everything works together in the most seamless way to protect the interests of employees, employers, and to protect the interests of Caymanians. So I think I can probably end it there. We can probably get into more as we move along.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that sort of overview of the reason, because I think sometimes the people don't understand the reason they kind of tune out a little bit. I can see that Mr. Johan Moxham was not listening this morning. He must have forgotten to to have his cup of coffee. But Johan, good morning. We're having a bit of a sip and learn segment this morning, but I see you're early to call in with a question or a comment, please.
Yeah, no, I got to jump in on an 8 o'clock call, and sorry, I just want to thank you for facilitating me. But more importantly, to your guest, CEO Wes, former Premier Panton, thank you so much for that intro and that overview. It's been a long time coming for any administration to take a deep dive into immigration reform and amendments, so on and so forth. I know you guys have got some good stuff to share with the public. I've taken the liberty of reading, what's been in the public domain. But I just wanted to ask a question of you both. And Mr. Panton, your intro and the way that you're able to clearly voice what Caymanians think, feel, and desire so succinctly, greatly appreciated. Just wanted to take that a bit further and ask a question about something that is very popular and a concern to many. Mm-hmm. We've got situations like that of Crazy Larry from Northside. We've got a situation where there's a viral video of a lady who's being harassed, a child with special needs or special child, and they've rented a place in Northside, but somebody deemed it necessary to act as the police or prick of the day and effectively harass that family. Where and how and when will the amendments to the current legislation directly address the ability of the powers that be in the relevant departments to say we will not tolerate such disgusting, racist, and discriminatory behavior from those that come from the outside just because you bought a piece of land here or you own a condo or you got some money? Anywhere else in the world, and I am no fan of Donald Trump. I think he's an orange idiot. Anywhere else in the world, we'd be able to say, yeah, Larry, yeah, go through the process of applying for whatever you're going to apply for, but you are persona non grata, because if you can march into somebody's vehicle, invade their space, assault them, and that person keeps their composure, that person should be, we should respect the fact that anybody else would have probably shot him or beat the living tar out of that person. And same thing with the situation in Rum Point where the husband and wife were harassing and really being belligerent towards a mom who was clearly making her case. The point that I'm making is this. Enough is enough is enough. And since we're going through immigration reform, and you guys have put in so much work, there will be something substantially missing from the entire process unless there are mechanisms and provisions that allow the system to say, Larry, we don't want you. You're not of good standing. You're not of good character. Lady from Northside and man from Northside that decided to become the landlord of a pool when somebody's paying their money to stay there. We have enough of these instances where people from outside who are bigots effectively are discriminating and harassing Caymanians, and they need to go. So it shouldn't take forever for the system to say, John Smith, we have evidence of you conducting yourself in an unruly, aggressive, criminal manner based on the evidence that we've seen. Can you please explain to us what is going on or your version of events? And we get to the point where we start making examples of these people. Because if they can do that to these Caymanians or these children, they can do it to mine, they can do it to yours, and they can mess with the wrong person, and it's going to go ugly. Okay. So please, please, please address the need for immediate reform in ridding this country of all of those racist, bigoted outsiders that think money gives them privilege and they can do what they want. Because if it was a Caymanian, that person would be arrested and in jail.
Thank you so much, Johan. I appreciate it. All right. We're going to go through what changes there are in currently, but is there anything, just out of curiosity, Mr. Howell, that addresses revocation of status that wasn't there previously, or preventing someone from actually getting it that has been deemed an undesirable individual because of their behavior? Has any of those changes yet been made?
So there are some new requirements in the legislation. There's annual declarations that need to be filed, which include whether or not an individual has been convicted or has any issues that would disqualify them from holding their facility. If they don't file those annual returns, annual declarations, then their facility could be revoked within a 3-month process. So that's there. There is an existing provision where a person's character can be considered as it relates to a grant. A little bit more challenging on the refusal side. We have to go through all the natural justice bits, but there are provisions in there as well for the boards to take action as it relates to revocation of those PR facilities and indeed the right to be Caymanian facilities as well.
Okay. Just for the benefit of our listeners, I have noticed that for some reason our Instagram feed is down. So what I will do, IG, is I'm going to go ahead just so that you guys can tune in. I'll go ahead and share the clickable YouTube link so that you can jump on to the program and still enjoy getting all the information here this morning. So I've just realized that for some reason Instagram is down, but not to fear. We got YouTube and Facebook and others that are still up. So please use one of those alternative options. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning then, and some of the key changes that are coming down the pipeline. And again, folks, I'm encouraging you to, sort of hold off on your calls. I think Johan expressed the sentiment that obviously a lot of individuals in the community share. We have been talking about that, but today's main purpose, quite frankly, is to learn what the current changes are and how these are going to impact your life. So here we are. Let's start, first of all, with the change as it relates to the advertising requirements. So some significant changes here. If you're an employer in particular, this is one of those things that you'll most certainly want to pay attention to. So Mr. Wesley, can you walk us through what this change is? And obviously, employers need to pay attention to this.
Absolutely. So the advertising requirement, one, is increasing the number of days that the job has to be advertised prior to applying for a work permit. It was 2 weeks, is now up to 21 days, so 3 weeks. And also added back in the previous requirement that the job be advertised in a local paper as well. So
now I do have a quick question about this, yes, because it says a locally printed paper. So does that mean that publications that are online only? Because I think right now we only have 2 of the current publications that are printing.
Yes.
So if it's a newspaper that doesn't print, that does not count. Is that correct?
That does not count. No, I can hasten to say that there is a provision that we can prescribe other media. And that's something that we're working through. What we want to avoid is opening up to all media platforms that are online. Some have less viewership than others, and the job postings then can sort of be hidden away in a very low visited. So we are taking some time to do that, but we know that particularly our younger folks would tend to be more online with their bits. But the newspapers do get some traction from parents and grandparents, and they will nudge and pinch their young people to go and apply for things.
Okay. Because I mean, that's, yes, I was just going to say that's a bit, it's debatable, but I certainly think it depends on who you are, because every time I walk by a stack of newspapers, I think to myself, sometimes the plastic on it isn't even broken. I said, wow, nobody's reading the print paper anymore. But there is a provision based on what you just said that other publications can apply to have their online platforms considered.
Yeah, so there's a provision where the government can prescribe through a cabinet process additional media that would fit the requirement and satisfy the legal requirement there.
And Sandra, I think you make a good point, and that is something that we'll definitely be considering to try to get that balance right, so that people who have different preferences can be accommodated. But as CEO has noted, it is important that we're able to say definitively, these are the areas where you look for these advertisements, and not just leave people in a situation where they, they're looking all over the place for it.
Right.
So it's something for us to discuss further and see how we can get the competing interests balanced better.
And I would also encourage individuals to utilize the online jobs portal with WRC, because it is designed in such a way that the persons who are deciding on whether or not to grant a work permit can see if there's the Caymanian who's expressed an interest there. And if the employer hasn't declared that they had those things, then we can take action against the employer and so on. So it's a relatively easy process to apply. You express your interest for a job on the jobs portal. There's tons of jobs on there, and it's actually online as well. Typically around 800, 900 jobs being advertised at any one time.
All right, very good. And I'm still really oftentimes surprised at the number of individuals who still have never registered. They claim that they're looking for a job. And I say, right, well, what's showing up on the job portal for you? And they share that they have not registered. Oh my gosh, folks, you got to get with it. You have to help yourself. So good news. I'm the queen of tenaciousness. And so we tried Instagram once more, and it has come up for us. So Instagram, you guys are now live as well. All right, almost 430 folks on the live stream. We're going to go through and this step by step to try to get some of the more important changes. Damien says, advertise locally in a newspaper for 21 days straight. That's expensive. Is it 21 business days, like a period of 21 business days? Obviously, some publications are only now printing weekly, so
it's once a week for 3 weeks.
Once a week. So there you go, Damien. Again, clarification, and that's why we've got the experts here. It's not daily, because I was just thinking, well, that would be impossible because we don't actually have a daily publication any longer that's in print. So once per week, which is basically 3 times, Damien, when you think about it, that's not really excessive in any way.
And
all right.
the printed papers have adjusted their pricing as well downwards to reflect the job advertising requirements. And free market is doing what it can do. The private sector is funding, and they're making it easier for employers to post their information and so on. So,
yes. And Hector agrees that online should still count because the whole world is virtual now. So there is a provision. Thanks, Hector, for that consideration. Morning, Miss Dorothy. Damien says, will businesses stop using shell company names and actually the real name of the physical business? I'm not quite sure what that's in relation to. So when a company advertises, what information has to be in the advert?
So it's basic information. Salary should be there. The job title, some of the qualifications from the job description. The name of the company isn't always there, I think, to the point of your audience member there. In some cases where, for example, you have a business with multiple storefronts, they may actually be advertising from a holding company, which allows their staff to move between storefronts. So that is something that is there, but clearly it has to be the salary, the qualifications, and a bit of a description as to what the role is.
Yeah, there has to be enough information there that you, as a potential applicant or employee, can understand what the job involves, what the benefits are, and know who to contact, where to contact somebody in order to make your interest known. But I just want to point out as well that, while there may not be the need for lots of specifics in terms of details around the hiring entities, when it comes to the actual immigration process, that is a different thing. The details then are required, and to ensure that we have, legitimate businesses operating. There has to be clarity around business licenses, and perhaps even additional licensing under other regulatory entities that government may be relevant.
So that I just did a search online for the online So I went to work.ky, wrc.ky, clicked on search for jobs, which is up on the right-hand side. There are 1,004 jobs there. The first one that pops up for me is a server, and the salary is 15 to 18,000 per annum plus grads. And it lists the entity and a brief description of what the work is and the experience and so on. So it for the folks that are saying the newspaper is not visible to young people, this online stuff is. You don't even have to register to search for the jobs. So you just go in and look at, see what's there. If you want to apply for a job, then you need to register. And we're tweaking the system so that not everyone that's on there can apply for jobs. You would have to be a Caymanian or a PR person married to Caymanian to be able to apply via the portal. So
good, because I was surprised just recently. I learned that expats are taking advantage of a bit of a loophole in the portal, in that they could register and apply for jobs just like everybody else. And I thought, well, what on earth?
Really
so I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, really annoying to employers and so on. So yeah, that's a change as well.
Very good. Awesome. All right, folks, let's keep your comments on track. And we do have Carib Guy who says that I'm a bit confused here. I'm registered in the job portal and I'm looking for a job for months. Employers were using, I don't know what Glassdoor is, but anyway, I guess that's some website, and LinkedIn to advertise their positions and not on WORC. So what happens when companies are trying to circumvent? I've heard that this does happen. What happens when companies are trying to circumvent the portal?
So if an individual doesn't advertise on the portal and doesn't have an exemption from advertising, their work permit simply wouldn't be processed. So the portal is a legal requirement, and now the advertising in the newspaper is a legal requirement if you intend to submit an application for a work permit. But if you're not, if you are looking to hire a Caymanian that doesn't need a work permit, then you can advertise on LinkedIn and all the other forums that you would want to get your message out. We encourage individuals who are looking for talent to also put it on the jobs portal, even if they're not seeking a work permit. But the fact that you see a job on LinkedIn and not on the jobs portal simply means that that employer doesn't have a work permit application pending to go in. And if they do and they're not advertising, it won't be progressed.
Okay. And if the link on the job portal, if that refers you to go and apply through, because I've also heard that this is illegal, so I just want to clarify this point. If the link on the job portal tells you, oh, go through a third-party website, our website, LinkedIn or whatever to apply, is that also then against the law?
No, it is not. And we recognize that particularly larger companies and those that use hiring firms to do their work, use automated systems to check CVs and so on. We wouldn't want to enfranchise anybody that's using that automation to do their bulk of applications coming in. But we do encourage individuals to just click on the portal as well to show that they have an interest in there so that we know that they've applied. But definitely the big companies and even medium-sized companies that use automation, I've been speaking to employers who advertise for a warehouse job, forklift driver, and we'll get 150 applications coming in. They use technology to do that. So we don't want to discourage them from using that technology to handle their HR hiring processes.
Okay. And if you apply on the portal, and as Carib Guy says, they're getting back to him after work permits are approved or not at all, is there any section there for feedback? I must admit, I haven't had to look at this new portal, but is there anything there for feedback that an applicant can send to WRC to say, listen, yes, I've applied for this job, but here are what my observations are. I'm not being contacted, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so we can do it. There are links on the page to make a complaint. I've asked for the web team to redesign that makes it a little bit more streamlined and easier for the feedback to come in. But definitely the guidance that we're issuing to employers, the change in relation to not just including it on a cover note. So what typically has happened in the past is when Caymanians apply, the way that the employer dealt with they're not hiring a Caymanian would be to detail the reasons why in a cover note. That requirement now is that they do that as part of the submission online, that they would detail to each person why that Caymanian didn't meet the bar necessary for them to be hired. But that's an area of work that we still need to do some additional work on. And for me, it really is sort of shifting the mirror to some extent to ensure that employers are looking at available Caymanian talent. We want to be able to adjust the jobs portal to be able to have more of a LinkedIn type approach, where if I'm a Caymanian looking for a job and I agree for my information to be shared, then individuals can go on and search for someone who's qualified to fix Whirlpool dishwashers, for example, and send me an interest, rather than waiting until an employer has a work permit application to apply for, and then they advertise as part of that process, because they've already sort of zeroed in on an individual that they want to hire and so on. So we know that that's an area where we still need to do some additional work, particularly around the underemployment of Caymanians and the upward mobility, which is a higher number than the unemployment number.
All right, folks, let's move on to the next big change that's coming. This is in relation to work permit holders changing jobs. Now, this is a significant one. And if you're an employer, we've heard just last week or the week before, there was some discussions on social media about one employer who's in the janitorial business was saying that her current staff, ahead of these changes, were telling her that they were going to go ahead and resign and go somewhere else, getting jobs at the big hotels, because, they obviously think they're going to make more money. So she was kind of feeling a way about, we bring people in from overseas to work in domestic janitorial services, lawn services, whatever. We put a lot of effort into training them. We pay for their permits. We, spend money essentially. And then here they are now jumping into another position before this change comes into effect, which I thought was very, very interesting commentary. So now we're having a look at what was the current position previous to this, Mr. Howell.
So the current position is individuals were effectively, in some cases, self-releasing. So they'll write to say, I am no longer working for this employer. They may list some reasons for that, and they find somebody else to take out a work permit for them. We also have individuals who are doing the recruitment game, where they hire individuals on temporary work permit, not having work for them. And then once they get here, they then shop around for somebody to take out a long-term work permit for them. So that does feed into the whole exploitation of workers, some human trafficking, and really, as you shared, the small businesses in particular who are hiring. So we're diversifying our nationalities that are here and hiring from around the world. And if you were spending, $3,000, $4,000 to bring someone from Nepal or India or the Philippines, they're here, they're with you for a couple of weeks and then self-release and go on to someplace else. That is an impact. We've also heard from businesses who like the idea of looking at talent. So a business owner might go into a competing restaurant and see a really good server and offer them a bit more and poach them. So some of those businesses that is their business model to hire talent from within Cayman and poach them away, don't like the 2-year provision. But for us, it does help the small businesses who have the significant investment in bringing in and settling people and training them up and so on. And it does act as a serious barrier towards this sort of work permit exploitation for persons who are just running the work permit mill and getting people here for them to then look around. So,
okay. All right. So the new provision, which is very, very important, and thank you guys so much. I see quite a number of you tuned in to the program. We're now slightly over 500 individuals, so lots of information. Take out your pens and pencils. Students, take some notes because this is good, important stuff. The change as of May the 1st is that work permit holders must now stay with an employer for 2 years before changing jobs. And if they leave early without a valid reason, the worker must return home for 1 year prior to applying for another work permit. And this requirement does not apply to domestic helpers who may continue working as a domestic helper for a different employer. So let's break this down just a little bit. So there's 2 years of continuing employment is seeking to address this issue. But I do notice based on the next, sort of note here, there are some reasons where that can be exempted from, I suppose. What are those types of reasons that we're looking at?
So not all employers are good, lawful employers. And what we didn't want to create with this is a situation where employers could then abuse their employees, because it's either you take the abuse or you go home for 1 year. So there's a provision in there that if you're being abused, if the company winds up, if there are legitimate reasons for you to exit the working relationship, then those could be considered. In relation to the abuse angle, if you're having those sorts of issues with your employer, then the requirement is that you go to the Department of Labor and Pensions, file a formal complaint with them, then file that complaint with WRC, who can then look at the substance of that and decide whether or not they can move ahead with allowing you to change employers. Now, DLP will be taking action for folks who file frivolous and fraudulent complaints in order to use that out. So we did build in a bit of a exit clause for individuals, primarily around the fact that we didn't want this locked in 2-year requirement to increase employee abuse.
Yeah, Sandra, this is one of the areas that careful thought has been given to this, because we do know that there are abuses that go on. People are abusing the system. People do abuse employees, and we're trying to get the balance right, and trying to ensure that we can provide addresses for both of those ways to address both of those scenarios. And it's only fair to allow an employee the opportunity to provide an explanation as to why they want to change jobs. So this is an important element, one that absolutely is good for the employee, and it is also good for the employer, because while we've, as you noted earlier, we've had people observing that some employees may have been indicating they were going to leave early. That's going to be their last opportunity to do that. If they were of that mind, prior to this amendment, they would have continued doing it. So it would have happened anyway, I guess, is the point. It's unfortunate, but that's just what happens when you're trying to address both sides of this equation.
Oops, my apologies. I'd muted myself. I was just thinking about this and saying that, there's actually certain industries that would see this type of job hopping, if you will, more frequent than others. So it's quite interesting. Now, it says here that it does not apply to domestic helpers. Is this domestic helpers where it's like a individual or singular domestic helper versus a company that offers cleaning services or janitorial services?
Agreed. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Indeed. So these are persons working for a household. And the reality there is that there is sometimes a genuine temporary need for domestic help, and persons share domestics and so on.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. Question that has come in from a listener to the program. They say, did Mr. Howell mention that there's no requirement to advertise for a temporary position? Though this is not new, many corporate employers are using this to allow foreign workers to get a foot through the door, have them situated, get the lay of the land, and then mount a more informed application for a full work permit. This initial time on the job is often used to get Caymanians to train them up.
So the issue with temporary is that we've gone from a system where the volume of work permits is such that there are delays in processing long-term grants. Our current foreign worker totals right now, this is as of the 1st of May, 37,095 work permits and 8,892 individuals on PR, various types of PR. So that's 45,987 foreign workers in country. WRC is seeing upwards of 60, 65,000 applications per year. So temporary has become the entryway into getting your first work permit, and then you transition into a long-term work permit. So through the fee schedule, we've introduced express decisions on grants. So that's within 21 days. And that express on grants is now the same price as the previous express on temps. And the express on temps has been tripled. That's signaling that we want you to apply for what you actually need. If you need a long-term work permit, don't apply for a temp first. Once that shifts the balance from temps to grants, then we will actually seek an amendment to the legislation that temps are truly temps. And if you're here for a 1 month maximum, say 2 or 3 months, then you can't go on from that into a grant. So that will sort that aspect. And the advertising requirement can be instituted if they so desire. We currently have some occupations that are not advertised. Domestics, for example, are a non-advertised application type. So they're exempted from the application bits. But ideally, we want to ensure that temps are truly temps and not a foothold in where you can work and get up to 6 months of experience to then be the top candidate for a grant.
Very good. Some good changes here. Carrie from Cayman Brack has a question or comment rather. She says the job hopping was not truly fixed as it only applies to the first permit. They can continue job hops afterwards. So that was a joke change. It wasn't change, just a blip. So just to clarify this, is that accurate that this change of 2 years only applies to the first initial permit that the person receives?
It does not. It actually is a running. So at any point in there, stay within Cayman, it applies.
All right, Carrie. Yeah. I'm glad you're here this morning, Carrie, front of the class, because you're going to be learning something, honey child. So let's make sure that, again, this is the purpose of the show. Legal changes can be very, very complex. And sometimes we don't always understand exactly what's going on. But look at that. A bit of clarification there for you, Carrie. So good. All right. So hopefully that you can put that down in your notebook now. Carrie, I'm going to quiz you a bit later on. Make sure you've gotten it. All right, here's another comment question coming in from a listener. They say, query for immigration panel. Is immigration able to track how many applications were made by Caymanians for each job on the portal? If yes, do the work permit boards have access to that data?
Yes, and yes. The two systems aren't linked, but the folks who prepare the agendas for the administrators and for the boards do list the Caymanian applicants, and where employers don't declare that they've had Caymanian applicants and we know about it, then we take action against them, as we've seen in the courts and also through administrative fines and so on.
Fantastic. I love it. I feel like we're making some good headway here this morning as well. Good morning, Irvin. How are you? So good to see. I think we have about 540 people here. I love it when students show up, especially on a Friday, because sometimes you guys get lazy on Fridays, but this just shows you how important of a discussion this really is. So let's move on now to expedited services for work permits.
Yeah.
So I know you touched
spoke
on this
about
a little bit
Yeah.
already. Yeah. So expedited applications will be subject to an express fee, in addition to any other fees related to the application. And that's now available for temporary business visitors and annual work permits as well. How is the backlog coming along, Wesley, in terms of, what's the average processing time for a full one-year work permit?
It's about 8 weeks now, but
Okay.
the temp will lock us into the 21 day. Now, I'll give the caveat that Mr. Scott would have given if he was here with us, is that your application needs to be complete and you've had to follow all the procedures. So, for example, if you didn't do your advertising and you submitted an express on it, then you lose your express fee. You have to go back out and re-advertise before your application will be considered either be deferred or refused. So that is on a complete application. Express temps are still being done within 48 hours. So that's 4 working days. But the department is working on the backlog of, in particular, renewals. And the reason that they sort of deprioritized the renewals is that if you were working for the same employer in the same occupation and the renewal is in, you can continue to work as long as that application is made before your current work permit runs out, until the decision is made. But Minister Miles is not happy with the length of time that it's taken. He's as passionate about efficiency as he is about Caymanian employment. So he has asked, and there's been a tremendous amount of work done to clear the backlogs and build up the capacity for more. So we've hired additional staff to make decisions, additional staff to process the applications and get them ready for the decision makers. So our intention isn't to do what we've done in the past, which is throw a lot of resources at it by taking them from one part of the department to the next. So we clear one bottleneck and create another one. We're actually looking at we're delivering on implementing people and processes that make it more efficient, that will be able to be very responsive to that, while ensuring that Caymanians are having real opportunities to apply. Their applications are being assessed, and where employers aren't doing the right thing, we can take action on those.
Fantastic.
This goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. The government and Minister Miles. Let me tell you, Minister Miles has really impressed me with his, rolling up his sleeves and digging into the details and looking at the processes to understand exactly where the problems are.
Yes.
And addressing those problems so that we achieve those efficiencies that anybody in the public dealing with government applying for work permits should have. It's government. It should be government's. It should be government's desire to try to make every process that government has as efficient as possible. And he has really not just looked at the issues of opportunities for Caymanians, but looked at the other side of the equation in terms of making sure that the businesses are able to get their work permits as efficiently as possible. And as CEO has noted, that we are working through the process of reducing that backlog. I think it's anticipated that we'll be able to clear that in about 2 or 3 months.
Absolutely.
And then we should have a system in place which is much more efficient and avoids the buildup of these backlogs that we've had in the past. So we want these changes. We want this reform to be able to work for both Caymanians as well as the business community and those people who need to apply for work permits.
And
Yes.
I'll say for a Caymanian entrepreneur who has a business that needs labor that isn't available,
Yes.
that is their work. So our delays are causing them to not have work.
Absolutely.
So we talk about Caymanian unemployment and unemployed entrepreneur because they can't get through our processes.
And small businesses face enough challenges today.
Absolutely.
This is not something that they should have to face.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I always see both sides of the coin now that I'm an employer as well, right? So most certainly. Damien says maybe WRC needs to get a night shift. Oh my goodness. working around the clock. Let's look at this next provision as it relates to grandfathering in applications. So this is where existing permissions and in progress applications are protected under the 2025 legislation. So this, just to be clear, this new set of changes came into effect as of May the 1st. So any applications that were in prior to May the 1st are good in terms of these new rules won't apply to them.
Absolutely. And in particular, those who have applied for permanent residency, the shorter timelines would have applied if they have an application filed with Department of WRC, or if they have an appeal with Immigration Appeals Tribunal. If they are successful with that appeal or with the shorter timelines would apply. What's not grandfathered in are the new fees. So if your facility if you applied in January, is granted at the end of May, your grant fee that's due on receipt of that service would pick up the new fees. But in terms of timelines, if your application is in, then that wouldn't happen. I'll hasten to say as well that the individuals who are applying for permanent residency, in particular at 8 year, they couldn't park their application before they got to the legal window to apply. So if you're at 7.5 years and you applied at the end of April trying to get in, it would not be accepted because you can't legally apply until you're at year 8. So only those who have lawfully applied within their period for which they can park an application, submit an application, would have done so.
All right. This person says, morning. How long once submitted should an applicant expect to receive an answer for Caymanian status? So what's the sort of time frame for that one?
So we went through a period where for almost 2 years, we didn't grant any Cayman status applications. That group is still working through. Cayman status applications are at July last year. So July, August of last year. So it's less than 12 months. And we're looking to bring that down, but we're looking 6 to 9 months is really how long it's taking at this point. Those decisions can only be made by the CSPR board, and they're geared up to do that. The boards are now meeting twice a week as well. So that's been reduced, and we are clearing a significant backlog because of that period where one particular board didn't grant any, which didn't stop people from getting it. It just delayed the problem and built a backlog that we have to deal with now.
Are we able to indicate what we might anticipate a reasonable time frame would be once we have addressed backlogs?
Yeah, again, we're looking at 3 to 6 months for that decision to be made. And the boards are really going through and looking at some of the things that Johan talked about earlier, character and so on, as they go through this process.
All right, we've got a caller. Caller, good morning. Question or comment for a guest this morning?
Good morning to the guest and to yourself, Sandy. I sent in a little comment there, but I just want some clarification on one thing. If you came to the Cayman Islands in April, in other words, before the 1st of May, do the 20-year period for status and the 9-year period for PR, do they apply to you, even if you have never applied?
So, morning, caller, and I recognize the voice. So, legal mind there. So, the grandfathering as it relates to shortened period, to go with the existing periods for PR to be held before you can move on to another facility or even get naturalized, that only applies if you have filed a legitimate PR application before May 1st. So, the existing workers that are here that haven't filed a PR application, they would be subject to the longer timelines. So no work permit holder is grandfathered into the shorter timelines unless they've submitted a PR application before May 1st.
You know what? It just seems to me that has not been sufficiently explained, because in some other explanations, what it has been said is that, look, if you are already in the Cayman Islands today, in other words, you've already begun your journey, which was the way it was initially described, you can still apply at the end of 15 years. That's what was explained in some other explanations. So it's just that I just think that the public don't understand exactly what has been done, because for me, initially, I understood it to mean that these new periods of time will not apply to people who are already in Cayman. Because it was even said, I remember that, you see, when people who've already applied, for example, although this is another category, people who have already applied for PR, they are being grandfathered in, not just for PR, but also for status. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is I don't think that this has been sufficiently explained. There are two views out there, and I think you just need to do a better job to
all right. Well, we're gonna set it straight this morning. So let's just clarify again, Mr. Howell, for those of us who might have been sipping a little bit too hard in the coffee and even missed the question. Let's clarify exactly what the position is. Get it right.
Yeah. So the position as it relates to the shorter timelines. For permanent residency, the grandfathering for permanent residency timelines. So the lengthened timelines are part of the new legislation that came into effect. If you have filed a within time application for permanent residency, so if you're on work permit and you're at year 8 or further, you could, if you've applied before the 1st of May, then your application would be dealt with under the old law, and your timelines to wait, i.e. you can get your naturalization within 3 years and your right to be Caymanian at 15, right? So that is if you have an application that is pending with the department, submitted in time with the department, or you have an appeal that's pending with the IAT, or a judicial review that's pending with the courts. So those timelines are there. If you are on work permit, so you could be at year 7 and 11 months before May 1st, you are not grandfathered in because there's no PR application pending for you. As it relates to the timelines for marriage, if you were married before May 1st, that application, whenever you choose to submit it, would be on the shortened timelines. If your marriage occurs after May 1st, it's the lengthened timelines. So those are persons married to Caymanians, persons married to PR holders. So that is the grandfathering bit for that. And it's a really good question, and it's a good segue for me as well to highlight the work of Ms. Tatiana Ramoon, brilliant Caymanian working in our ministry, who took it upon herself to create a guidebook based on her understanding of what people were looking for. It's available on gov.ky/immigration reform. We update it regularly. It was last updated yesterday. And it does go into more detail on the provisions. Caveat is it only applies to immigration as it relates to the changes in legislation. It doesn't cover all of the immigration law, but it does a really good job of summarizing the changes and putting it in less legalese that individuals can understand. So that's available. I encourage folks to do there and to be sustainable and not print it. Access it online so that you're always getting the most recent updated version.
Yes, absolutely.
She is definitely an exceptional young Caymanian and very, very impressive. The work that she has done on that, someone with no legal background or anything, to be able to put this together in a way that communicates very clearly all the different changes, the framework for the legislation, the why and the how and the what. Phenomenal job. Amazing.
Yes.
Someone to be absolutely proud of.
And we do have a copy of it. So, of course, as Mr. Howell said, you'll always get the updated copy on the website. But if you need a copy as of today, just to give you a little sneak preview of what it looks like, here it is. Again, a well put together document that covers some major areas of consideration for you. So if you want a copy, you can certainly message me in WhatsApp and I'll send you an electronic copy as well. Of course,
as we move through the additional reforms that are being done,
it will be expanded on.
We're taking a similar approach, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, we set the bar.
Yeah, we're not getting off that tree.
No, it looks great. All right, folks. Some great and wonderful questions coming in. We had some that were submitted before the show, so let me make sure that I include those. So this one says, I have a question, please. Apologies in advance if it's a little long. In the lead up to the changes in May, it appeared that there'd be a change to this scenario where two expats marry, the spouse with the shortest time to roll over assumes the time of the spouse with the longest time to roll over. What we had heard was that this would be reversed under the new law, and the spouse with the longest time remaining would assume the shorter time period. I've looked over the official material relating to the changes as of May 1st, and I don't see anything in relation to the proposed changes above that we were expecting. Perhaps I missed it. So this again was one of those loopholes that a lot of people were taking advantage of when it came to their rollover period, because one spouse might have arrived at a different date than the other spouse. So what now? As of May 1st, has there been any changes to that specific area? And if so, what is the change?
Yeah. So effectively what has happened as of May 1st in very plain English is that you will no longer be able to attach yourself. Once you've hit your 9-year term limit, you will no longer be able to attach yourself to your spouse's longer timeline. So the gotcha for individuals, for example,
Turning the light back on here.
or light in the conference room.
I know I'm having an issue with my own light this morning, so I'm a little bit dark as well. No worries.
So I'll work it out in a scenario. So an individual arrives on the island as a non-Caymanian worker,
right?
Works for 7 years. They're then joined by their spouse, who starts at year 0. When that individual hits year 9, their spouse is now on year 2, and they can continue to work for another 7 years beyond their term limit by attaching themselves to the spouse. That goes away as of May 1st. That's gone. So if you want to align yourself to your spouse, you can, but it would be at the lower threshold. So if you both want to be aligned, then the spouses, the new arriving spouse, that term limit would be adjusted down to match the term limit of the spouse that has the less time. And that's something that you need to apply for. But the takeaway from this is that you can no longer bypass our term limits by attaching yourself to a spouse who arrived years after you arrived. That's in simplest terms. It's what it is.
Because I was quite surprised, Wesley, to hear that it's actually a thing for expats to not just do that, but people who weren't even married. There was a separate category of marriages of convenience within the expat community where they were getting married to, say a Jamaican lady would come here now. And it was to her benefit for a guy who had been here for 6 years to marry her, because then he would get attached to her term limit. Yeah. And I thought, wow, okay. People always seem to find a way to try to navigate the system.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is a fix for that growing, and we've seen that trend growing, which is why we wanted to tackle it. And when those individuals now have children who've been here for a long period of time and so on, it just adds complexity to the whole thing. So term limits are being limited. Yeah.
Wonderful. Jill says, congratulations to Tatiana, exceptionally smart and lovely young Caymanian lady. So Tatiana, you get a big shout out on the cold hard truth this morning. Job well done. Real Deal says, and I bet the banks will still lend to expats for mortgages, etc. So, all right, let's get to another question as we continue to walk through and move through our educational slides here. So we had another one that came in last night, or a couple of days ago, in fact, and they sent a screenshot from the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025. And their question to this was, good afternoon. This has been making the rounds. Is it true? And it's in relation to the standard rollover term for work permit holders has officially increased from 9 to 10 years. And then there was a segment there about extended stay. You can now remain in the Cayman Islands for up to 10 years of continuous residence before you're required to leave for 1 year rollover. So has the rollover period been changed?
Absolutely not. So AI is brilliant and it does a really good job of summarizing stuff, but it does hallucinate. And this is AI hallucination.
Not infallible.
So we've written, I think this pops up on Google if you search for it. We've written to them to say you got it wrong, and we're putting out our own social media thing, reminding folks that we haven't adjusted term limits as well. So 9 years is your term limit. No change to 10.
Wow, interesting. Huh. All right. Well, sometimes you got to correct AI. That's for sure. No worries. Good. I'm glad that we clarified that point. So let's continue to move on. Just a reminder now, this is the sort of, I guess, new changes before applying for right to be Caymanian. So let's walk us through this, Mr. Wesley.
So we were talking about folks being grandfathered in before. So currently, if you come into the islands as a non-Caymanian, you are able to work for 8 years without having a break. So you successfully had work permits up until year 8. You can apply for permanent residency at year 8. If you get permanent residency at year 9, the facility that you would have gotten prior to May 1st would have been a PR application that is open-ended, so it has no expiration date, which means that within a year of having that facility, you would satisfy the British Nationality Act. This is the UK legislation as it relates to who can be a British Overseas Territory citizen. The same act applies to BVI, Bermuda, even the UK itself. So once you satisfy that bit, you have an immigration facility that has no end date on it. You've had it for a year, you've been in country for 3 years, you qualify for naturalization, which gives you a passport. Once you're naturalized, the old law was that on naturalization, you can apply for the right to be Caymanian within 5 years of naturalization or 15 years in country. So persons could go through from day 0 to day 15 and become Caymanian, and having a passport at 10 years, maybe that's where the 10 came from, I don't know. The changes is that your first PR application, for an application submitted after May 1st, your first PR grant would have a 5-year limit on it, which means that within that 5 years, so from year 9 upwards to year 15, you would be time bound. So you have an expiration date, which means you can't be naturalized. And then, so that shifts naturalization out to 15 years, and right to be Caymanian then becomes 20 years, which is the new column there. And you can see that reflects on the second row from 5 to 10, the amount of time that you now have to qualify after you've been naturalized to become Caymanian. And if you're a BOTC citizen from another overseas territory, so if you're from Bermuda, to say, and you're working here on work permit, you can't be renaturalized because you're already a British Overseas Territory citizen. You simply then have to wait on the time frame to go through. And for persons married to Caymanians, they can currently apply for the right to be Caymanian without being naturalized at 7 years of marriage. That's been increased to 15 years. So that's that summary of the new timelines. And again, if your marriage occurred before the 1st of May for the Caymanians, persons married to Caymanian, you can apply for the Caymanian status at 7. But if your marriage occurs after the 1st of May, then it's 15 years. That was a mouthful.
Yes. No, we're getting through it. Island Pearl has a question. So they say, is it the same thing when the husband has been here for years? His PR got deferred. The wife then comes into Cayman years after and secures a job with government. Now the husband is on the wife's permit. So let's talk about civil servants, because there was another question in relation to civil servants as well. I think it was Scott who asked this question. How does it work for a spouse at their term limit when they're a government contracted worker? So what's going on with the civil service and contracted workers for SAGCs and government?
Yeah, so civil servants up until May 1st were exempted from term limits. The changes in May applied term limits to civil servants. The way that's been dealt with is via regulations that would go under the Public Service Management Act. So that's being done by regulations, and those are being fine-tuned and should come into effect relatively soon. The regulations for the civil service are mirroring the provisions for the immigration legislation as it relates to those things.
Okay.
And after May 1st, if you're transitioning in or out of the civil service, your term limit goes with you. So there's no loophole in changing from one to the next after May 1st.
All right. 564 people now tuned in. Let's go to our phone lines. You guys are like hotcakes this morning. Let's go to the phone lines. Good morning, caller. How you doing?
Hi, good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Question for our guests? Question or comment?
Question, I think. Actually, in relation to that last point, I am part of a group of work permit holders who are spouse of a government contract worker working within a statutory authority. And Mr. Howell just sort of said it's coming. It hasn't, the ink hasn't dried on it. They haven't, but it is going to mirror the changes for work permit holders in general. The story kind of leading up to that, and then maybe the story is in the process of changing, was that the contract worker clock was going to reset to 9 years from the enactment of the changes. So, if a contract worker had been on Cayman for 5 years or 6 years or however long, that because they were in that limbo zone of being on island but not really being in the work permit system, that there was sort of an indefinite period of employment, which is part of the corrections that are obviously being made in the new legislation. But is that clock being reset, or is that contract worker now defaulting to their original time frame on island? Because that could create some problems, because let's say you've been here for 12 years, but you don't have PR, you've been a contract worker for the whole time. Are you now like immediately got to pack up and go? Or is your clock resetting? Or if you are, 6 years into your journey, are you now looking at your PR window sort of regardless if you're a contract worker with the government or not? So that is A. And then B is for the spouse, if the term is extended for the contract worker, does the spouse, because now you're in that period of, if it was a normal work permit, you default to the lower term. If this is a contract worker with a government contract, are you now tied to that contract if it is now resetting to 9 years? So I will hang up and I'll let the two gentlemen do the best answer, whatever that was of a question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Wesley, I know you were listening intently to make sure you got that.
Excellent question. So first of all, the exemption from term limits only apply to core civil servants, not public servants. So if you're working for a government-owned company or other entity, you are under the work permit regime, and those folks have always been subject to term limits, other than the HSA and UCCI. So if you look at the transitional provisions of the legislation, you can see that there's a carve-out for those organizations. So the caller said, does the clock reset? Well, the actual issue is the clock never applies, so the clock starts as of May 1st. So their term limits for civil servants start at zero at May 1st. So they start their term limit at that point. When I said that the provisions for the work permit regime will be applied to the civil service, likewise, their dependents, again, would not be able to continue to work beyond the dependents. So, for example, a non-Caymanian civil servant has a spouse who is working in the private sector on work permit and is at year 8 or 9. Year 9 or more, they can attach themselves to a year 0 civil servant and carry on from there. So that parity between the work permit regime and the civil service regulations would marry that up, that is equal.
Some really fantastic questions here this morning. And I'm so glad to see that you guys are paying attention and I think taking some pretty good notes. And this, again, is just a point of clarification. This caller is just wanting to, or listener is just wanting to make sure that they understand. So they say if there's a work permit holder who has now reached their rollover point and their spouse is aligned, and their permit, is aligned with their spouse who has been in the Cayman Islands for, say, a year or less, how would the new alignment rules apply? Would the spouse's permit now be shortened and aligned with the individual who has reached their rollover point, or would the spouse continue on their current timeline with approximately 7 years remaining before being rolled over?
Yeah, so if you're a person who have attached yourself already to a spouse's work permit, so you passed your term limit, and you're attached to your spouse's facility, that current provision only lasts as long as your current grant. So it would be usually it's tied to the anniversary of when your spouse got their work permit, but that falls away on your next. If you apply for that to continue, it would not be continued. So if your right to continue to work attached to your spouse is up in June, it's up in June. There's no July renewal for it. You would then have to take your term limit break. You could stay as a dependent if you meet the threshold for that, as long as you're not working, but you can't be employed as in excess of your term limit after your current facility expires.
And of course, you can, let me just clarify this because this isn't something that I really know, but could you choose not to attach yourself to your spouse's permit, or is that an automatic?
Yeah. So the way that I say that to people is, imagine that you're filing taxes in the U.S. and you're filing married but filing single. The same applies. Yeah.
Okay. Understood. Now I got it. Okay. Very interesting. Good questions. Good questions. Thank you guys so much. Let's move on to our next slide as it relates to Caymanians as of right. So first of all, can we get a definition for what this even means? What is a Caymanian as of right?
Yeah. So I'll first start by saying having a Cayman passport is not proof that you are a Caymanian. As I shared with that timeline on PR, you can get naturalized as a BOTC citizen, attached to the Cayman Islands, and get a Cayman Islands passport. So we had this vexing situation where individuals who were born in Cayman of Caymanian parents were not able to show that they were Caymanian because they've never been granted anything by a board or the director of work. And as employers got into the position where they were being fined for hiring people who were not Caymanian, they were looking at individuals with Cayman Islands passports and hiring them and then getting into trouble. They started asking for this. You also need it if you apply for financial assistance or you try to register trade and business, apply for trade and business license and so on. So the government took a decision that they wanted to use existing legislation, previous legislation and previous practice where it aligned closely with the British Nationality Act in the past and so on, and made and the Parliament voted on this. I think it was 16 to none. Don't quote me on that one. I may have been quoting the one from December, not the one in March. But the Parliament voted in support of this. So what this provision says is, if you were born in the islands on or before the 26th of March, 1977, then by virtue of your birth alone, you are deemed to be Caymanian. This then paves the way for you to go on and apply for services in government and so on without having to first apply to the director of WRC or the board to send you a document that says you are Caymanian. And the reason that we that date was there is that sort of aligns with some of the British Nationality Act bits for birth in country. So we we follow the same law as the UK where birth in country doesn't make you Caymanian. So born after the 26th of March, 1977 in the Cayman Islands, you would take the nationality of your parents at the time of your birth. So we can deal with folks at different bits there, but the big change in this is that deeming provision for anyone born before the 27th of March, 1977, deemed to be Caymanian and can proceed from there on. So there's a number of folks, vast majority of the individuals in Parliament all fall within this group for those that are born in Cayman. And it's a welcome approach. I tell you, I get more frustration from Caymanians when they have to do this for their kids to enter school and they have to acknowledge their kids, which means they also have to be acknowledged. Oh my goodness. It's vexing. So that is the fix in here. The other provisions are all sort of grandfathering in birth based on changes to our legislation, also changes in the British Nationality Act legislation. So because those two actually, they're not completely aligned, but they do rely on each other.
Yes. And listen, as at this time, I did mine as soon as it was part of the birth registration. As soon as I got her birth certificate, I just said, let me go in and get her acknowledged right away because I couldn't be bothered being stressed out at a later time with it, right? So I did it pretty soon after birth. All right, fantastic. Let's do a couple audience questions and comments. So Onika says, if a person has Cayman status, to get a Cayman passport, does that person need to be naturalized?
So there are some provisions to get to Cayman status before you are naturalized, primarily through marriage. So an individual married to a Caymanian can, if they were married before the 1st of May, can apply for the right to be Caymanian at year 7. Say, for example, that individual was Canadian, they could not get a Cayman passport, even though they have right to be Caymanian, unless they're naturalized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you, Anika. Jeannie Pinol Mendoza Gutierrez. That's a mouthful. Says, good morning, everyone. Just a follow-up question regarding the spouses aligning their term limits. Will these changes affect those who've already attached to their spouse work permit when the renewal is set after May the 1st?
Yes. So if they currently have that facility on an active work permit, they're attached to a spouse and they're past their term limit, when that current work permit expires, they would have to take their term limit break if they want to continue to come back to work after that. But they'll no longer be able to bypass their term limit by attaching to a spouse for a new facility granted after the 1st of May.
Mm-hmm. Tartarian voices an opinion. Employers should never be allowed to hold permit holders for 8 years in a job unless it's an essential job. That area is another loophole to apply for PR. Anthony, good morning. He says, what's the position with the refugee Cuban that has kids with the Dominican? What's the nationality of the child? Oh, Lord, have mercy. So do people, to make it more general, because, a lot of us are of the opinion, we'll talk about him in another day, that he's another one that should be a persona non grata. But anyway, generally speaking, what of these provisions, if any, apply to people with refugee status? I know that's a whole other piece of legislation, right?
Yeah, so that's under the CBC Act. But what I can say is that if somebody is granted asylum, they are then able to live and work freely. If that asylum is an open-ended asylum, then it's the equivalent of PR with a right to work. So that would allow them to move on to be naturalized and to become Caymanian at some point down the road, because their asylum grant has no end on it. There were amendments to the asylum legislation that asylum that's granted after that date was granted for a 3-year period and would be re-examined after that 3 years. After that point, it could be then open-ended. But whether they're here as persons who have been granted political asylum, refugee status, or individuals who are working or visitors, children born in the Cayman Islands take the nationality of their mother at the time of birth. If the mother and father are married, then they can get both the mother and the father's nationality at the time of birth. And if they're not married, then there would have to be a DNA test, but that would be up to whoever's nationality they would fall under. But for those folks in that scenario, the children would be the nationality of the mother at the time of birth.
All right, folks, we're going to keep it moving here. Lots of alert students this morning. Waking up the Cayman Islands has questioned, in addition to that brilliant guidebook, can orientation workshops, briefings, or videos on Cayman customs and culture be carried out for new and old work permit holders? So that doesn't exactly fall under this department, but I'm sure the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Heritage is paying attention. So we'll pass that along.
We actually do have that in our to-do list, is to build in a sensitization process for individuals to do before they work in Cayman. So that is something that we're doing. I know the schools are looking to do it as well. So it is an NCFC government initiative that our Caymanian culture be embraced and shared and people be aware. So it is a to-do item, and we'll be happy to come back and talk about what that looks like when we get to the
Okay. Oh, wow. You guys are just clickety-clicking right along. I absolutely love it. Anthony, you're welcome. And by the way, Anthony, I saw your other comment about our show numbers. I'm not going to read that while our guests are on air. We're being nice to anyone who might be seen as a competitor, but I did see your comment. We'll talk about it later. That's not what's important this morning. It's getting you this really, really, substantial information. So work permit holders, term limits. If a work permit holder applies for or renews a work permit based on their spouse's term limit, again, this is just reiterating, i.e. it aligns their term limits. The term limit for both individuals will be aligned to that of the permit holder with less time remaining. So I want to make sure now that this is made crystal clear. There's no confusion here in relation to that. And I've already had
again, if you're working here and your spouse and you're almost at your term limit and your spouse joins, you don't automatically reset theirs to yours unless you apply to have them aligned, and then they would be aligned. So you can work yours and continue on, and they can work theirs and continue on. You can no longer attach to theirs, but if they choose to attach to you, it would bring theirs down. Yeah.
So alignment is optional.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Financial standing requirement. So a work permit holder must demonstrate. We got a caller. Let's take the caller first. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. I know this isn't the current topic, but I called WORC yesterday, and the lady, and I do not envy their job at the call center right now. She was unclear, and I'll tell you the answer that she gave me, but I would like some clarification on permit holders that are married to Caymanians, the new process, because I know that the RERC takes much longer, but I am still seeking clarification. I've attended, listened to everything, and I'm still not 100% certain of what is going on. So someone who was a work permit holder and they got married to a Caymanian and they submitted their RERC prior to May 1, their temporary permit is expiring. Do they go on WOL, PCW, work permit grant, or nothing? And then for someone who is married to Caymanian and is doesn't have anything yet, recently got married to a Caymanian, wants to work in the Cayman Islands now, are they able to apply for either a temporary or a grant? And I will hang up and listen, and hopefully I will get it right this time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.
So I'm really missing Mr. Scott right about now because his years of experience in immigration.
Glad you're not asking me to answer it.
So the scenario is that the individuals who are married to Caymanians, the expectation is that they would apply for and receive the residence employment rights certificate, which would allow them to work in any occupation for any employer without paying a fee. So we have discouraged them from applying for work permits, but they're not completely precluded from doing that. So if their RERC is pending, they can, with exceptional, and I think this is where Director Scott uses his discretion and allows them to apply for a work permit in the meantime. We're balancing the marriages of convenience, the sham marriages, and that right to work. So we are taking time to scrutinize those applications, and individuals like that scenario can get caught in that mix. So the roadmap is to apply for that RERC green card equivalent, if you may, but it does not totally preclude you from applying for a work permit, and I've seen that done on sort of a case-by-case basis.
All right, folks, some excellent questions this morning. Financial standing requirements. Let's just go through this before we look at some additional listener questions.
So the prior financial standing requirements to add a dependent was 3,500 household salary and 500 for each additional dependent. Looking at what it costs to do health insurance, private school, and so on, that number was deemed to be not sufficient. And we have had representation from individuals who are saying, hey, government, your work permit holders are showing up at our church food pantry. They're showing up at the food depots, and they can't make ends meet. Some kids are not in school, and so on. So the new limit that came into, the new minimum that came into effect on May 1st is that individuals have to earn a $5,000 minimum in order to add their first dependent, and each additional dependent is an additional $1,000 for that process. So that's the limit for dependents. It could be a non-working spouse, it could be a child that is on there.
Mm-hmm. So it's just been increased because, hey, everything is getting more expensive, right?
And
Cayman is certainly no exception
to actually being part of the legislation. No.
Yes. All right, another caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. I just have a quick question. I'm not sure who could answer, but is it lawful for a marriage investigation officer to show up at a couple's home without informing the couple?
I would hope so, because there's lots of sham marriages that they need to be checking on, but let's have the experts respond to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And cold calls to both people at the same time to compare notes is part of the script. So, yeah, absolutely. And a good segue, we actually, as part of the legislation coming in as well, we've also introduced new regulations as it relates to marriage officers and those who conduct civil arrangements, that they have a reporting requirement. If they suspect a marriage of convenience or a civil partnership of convenience, they have to report it in, or they could be fined themselves. So absolutely, we can knock on doors, and I like when they do that because it helps keep us straight.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I can tell you that it happens in most jurisdictions who actually care about sham marriages.
Oh no, we were just asking.
Yeah. No worries.
Because we know sometimes most couples are not at home, so
Yeah, they might be watching you closer than you think, So couples beware. Thank you so much, my darling.
It is true. Yes, ma'am.
Have a good one. You're welcome. All right. So that's what enforcement is all about, folks.
Absolutely.
They gotta
yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, people might perceive certain things to be intrusive, but
it's part of the job.
We have to take these steps to ensure that the abuse doesn't occur.
And particularly when it's non-Caymanians getting married or entering a civil partnership, there's no community, no Caymanian community that knows them and knows that they're a long-term couple, and it's a legitimate thing and not a sham. So
and we get those sorts of complaints all the time. Personally, I know for a fact that I get them, where people are like, Miss Sandy, this couple is not even living together. One is at this address and one is somewhere else, and they're living completely separate lives. So the only way for that to be verified is for, the investigative agencies to be able to pop up. They're watching, and I'm glad to hear that, perhaps they're getting more people in the budget and they can watch you a little bit more closely. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, panel. How are you all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. One quick question. I haven't gotten everything, and I haven't been reading everything, but I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I did a charity trip to Jamaica to the Black River Hospital, and I needed help packing the 20 pallets. The 20 boxes and things I bought in from Jamaica for the Ministry of Health. I do one charity thing every year in honor of my parents for my nonprofit organization, which is named after them. Be kind, be humble, be the light.
Yes.
And I went down in Jamaica in February. And when I was doing that, I had a bunch of volunteers that came and helped me, that knew my nephew and my sister and different ones. And one of the topics came up with this lady saying, I work at a certain fast food restaurant. And she says they fire people all the time. And there are people here that have there. Some are on work permits, and some have Cayman status, and some have housing and whatever and whatnot. But they don't prosecute them. So I want to know from Wesley what has been put in place, for these people, because a lot has happened with the Filipinos as well. And I know a few years back, fosters did prosecute a lot of them, because I actually saw that stuff in court myself. But what has really been put in place to help Jeremy and his team? Because that is something, just like you all are working hard to make sure that people with the Cayman status are in order, or the false marriages are in order, and people here working in this country. We have people that are in these restaurants that are being fired by their employers, and then they're allowed to go back and get jobs at other places, and they are thieves. You start with one, you start stealing a penny, and it goes to 1,000 less than no time. And if you cannot be a decent person in our country, you should not be allowed to have a work permit and work here.
So the core question then is people who are terminated being able to go on to get other jobs.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
What's in the law that's really going to grab teeth and say, look, enough of this is enough. Once this happens, you're on the plight. Because that's what Jim, and that's what Mr. Jim and I and them used to do back then to make sure that our island was safe. And as you all know, I strongly implemented the Immigration Appeals Tribunal to make sure that we could get rid of a lot of those people that were here and were not doing what was right.
All right, we got it. So this is a great question, in fact, because recently we were highlighting someone who, same sort of thing. And then a secondary question to that, Wesley, is for employers who don't even, we talked about our Filipino Michelle friend. She got terminated from Sandbar, but they didn't cancel her work permit. So she had months that she was here unlawfully, quite frankly. And then she was permitted to, take up a temporary permit at Tilly's many, many months later. So how does that happen? And is immigration doing anything to address either of those scenarios?
So yes, two things. We already talked about the 2-year anti-job hopping thing. So they'd have to take a year's break and come back.
So that applies even in this scenario where they are terminated or their work permit is canceled.
It could be applied in that case as well.
Yes. Okay.
A termination in itself doesn't automatically get you out of that contract. Because if I want out, then I just work so bad that you want to terminate me so I can go get another employer to take out my things. So again, we're preempting some of these loopholes. So that 2-year bit was there. The other bit, which is absolutely super critical, is that employers who no longer employ a work permit holder have to mandate it to report that ending of that relationship within 7 days. If they do not, it's a $20,000 fine, up to $20,000, or 2 years imprisonment. So it's an offense to not report that someone no longer works for you outside of the 7-day period for which you have to. So you have a week to let work know that your employee no longer works for you. So they can't stay on their current work permit that hasn't been canceled, even though they're not working for that employer, and shop around for another employer. And an employer who is complicit in that then is subject to that offense and that fine of up to $20,000.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Absolutely. Great enforcement. Thank you so much. All right. Another caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, dear.
The question that was just asked. Knowing that a lot of employers have threatened employees with cancellation of their permit if they complain of things that the law says they should be doing and they are not doing. Don't you think this provision will now give employers another power to say that, listen, if I fire you, you will no longer be able to get a permit under this change. And what will happen is that you will have employees who will be afraid to go to the labor board to complain about infractions because this threat is over their head. I would like to know what would be the consequences for employers who abuse their staff. You have staff who lives in, and actually sometimes they are working 24 hours around the clock, especially when they are like healthcare worker for the elderly. And these people, they are afraid to go to work to the labor board because they are threatened by their employees, their employers. So I think there could be a set of criteria wherein that, okay, these are the stuff that you will be able to change your employer for if your employer does not align with these stuff.
All right. Thank you so much, caller. So this is a real situation. We know this, even from on this program about, people, there are some not so nice employers out there and they do abuse their workers and they too are trying to find loopholes in the system. So this is really a DLP issue, but DLP and obviously, both CBC and WRC, a lot of the different elements go hand in hand. So let's talk about how this could potentially be addressed.
So I covered this briefly earlier, saying we know that individuals will try to exploit their workers more because of this restriction. We also know that individuals who are trying to get out from a work permit may make a fraudulent claim that their employer isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing,
right?
As well. So to balance that, the process that's set out in the regulation, in the regulations, that you file your application, you file your complaint with DLP. So you have to make a formal complaint. You take a copy of that complaint back to WRC, who would then action that and determine there. So going to Ms. Tatiana's guide on page 12, persons can apply for an exemption from this 1-year leave requirement under the following circumstances: regular unpaid overtime, work outside the job description without compensation, discrimination, bullying, retaliation, harassment, sexual, physical, or verbal, and other circumstances that the director might consider sufficient to exempt you from this. So that's covered. So we've tried to balance that scenario where an individual is being tied up in there. And to answer Damien's little quick thing, we're not waiting on a decision to be done by
the labor board.
DLP. We can actually take it based on the complaint, knowing that if someone makes a fraudulent complaint, we can also deal with that. So
wonderful. So the complaint has to be made, Damien, but they don't necessarily have to wait on a decision, because then, of course, by putting this particular process in place, you open yourself up to, if you for some reason thought that this was an easy way out and you've made a false complaint, you are now liable to prosecution for making false complaints and filling out false documentation. I tell you what, I'm really liking what I'm hearing. So a couple more questions coming in. People are like, please, Sandy, don't let them go before you ask my question. Here's one that came in earlier this morning from 7:57, so I want to get to it. They said, good morning, welcome back, just joined, so not sure if you discussed this. I know it's 2 5-year periods. This is a specialist term limit, a specialist caregiver's term limit. So they want some further explanation on this. So they say, I know it's 2 5-year periods, but I want clarification if the extension is with the same employer, or are you allowed to change employers?
So let me explain what this is to begin with.
Okay.
So if you have a domestic helper or a nanny or a nurse, for example, that is caring for an elderly person, a special, a disabled individual, you can, if they've worked for you for, I think it's 2 years before they hit their term limit, you can apply for a specialist caregiver certificate, which allows them to bypass their term limit as long as they continue to work for you. So that's currently 5 years, renewable for 5-year periods without an end. The change that's being made is that it's 5 years and an additional 5 years and no further extensions under that regime. So that domestic helper or specialist caregiver can work for a family to up to 19 years before their term limit hits in. So the certificate allows them to bypass their term limit, but it's now limited to two 5-year term limits. But it has to be for the same employer caring for the same individuals. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I think that's been answered. One more says, I'm watching the program and I just will have a question. If your permit grant has been refused, can the company apply for temporary, or does it have to be a 1-year? Thank you. Keep me anonymous.
You can apply for, employers can apply for any type of application. whether or not they're trying to circumvent a bit by doing the temporary, it would depend on what the reasons are for the original refusal. If it was based on character or something like that, it doesn't matter which one you apply for. But yeah, they can submit an application, no guarantee that it's going to be
approved. Yes. All right. Another person says, read the dependent scenarios. Does the increased financial requirement apply retroactively, i.e. the person's already here prior to May the 1st with dependents?
It applies whenever their facility expires.
Okay.
Yeah. So
if they already have approval in place, then that remains until a new application of some sort got it. All right. We do have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, my two gentlemen. How are we?
Morning. Great.
I don't even know if I want to tell Sandy good morning because she has me kind of upset right now.
But look at all the great shows we bring to you, Miss Amelia, when we come back from vacation.
You need to stay off of vacation. And then you go so long, make it worse.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway,
yes.
My question is, my theory is that all of this sounds awesome, but the problem is that the enforcement part. How are we to rest assured that the enforcement will be accurate? Because a lot of times we're having these issues and the law is there, but it's lack of enforcement. Let me give you an example. Some time back, there was a young man here on a work permit working for the young lady. What's her name there? Cherry Ann. Is it Cherry Ann's name? Okay. And she wasn't paying the man his salary. So he went and was working for someone else and was receiving a salary. She called, she texted, she cursed him out, all kind of foul language, telling him you need to pay her monthly for her work.
All right, let's get to the end of the story.
Hold on, and he canceled. Hold on, Sandy. Now, at the end of the day, I retrieved all of that messages, took them into immigration, and immigration claimed they couldn't find this woman to charge her. When you come to find out, the woman was on the immigration board. I say that to say this. This is where the flaws lie within immigration. Some of them are so corrupt, and the law just don't apply to them. So how are we going to be ensured that changes is going to be made, people will be held accountable, and that we can rest assured that accountability will be dealt with and we can say, well, yes, our laws are really working.
All right, enforcement. Thank you so much, Mr. Amelia. She gave a very detailed example there of how they couldn't find the person. What's being done on the enforcement side to really improve the outcomes?
So as you can see from what I've shared this morning, a bulk of these changes are enforcement related, compliance enforcement related. There are currently 12 individuals at work that deal with enforcement actions and compliance checks. That's to be increased. The additional reporting requirements will, in terms of the annual filings and the increased penalties on lying on documents for given fraudulent information, will also allow us to deal with sort of the more strict liability issues relatively quickly, where we have to prove intent and so on. Then that raises the bar from an evidentiary perspective. I can't speak to that individual case and whether or not somebody was told that they couldn't find someone. For me, I wouldn't imagine that anyone who made a complaint could then follow up on the details of that complaint, because that would be breaching those rules around evidence collection and so on, and sharing of privileged information. But I can say that because we know that these changes are heavily on the compliance and enforcement arm, that is an area where we're beefing up as well. And the the declarations would mean that more information is coming to us that we can act on, and so is the fines and penalties for giving false information.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And I want to remind, do we have a fast and hard stop at 9:30? Can we go over just a little bit, gentlemen?
We can accommodate it, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anthony in particular is going to be so happy about that. Yes, let's go ahead and take this caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Yeah. Just based on the last couple of calls where the theme has kind of shifted from, individuals to employment and employers. I know that the theme has been that this is the first phase of a longer term or perhaps multiple phases of immigration reform. And I'm just sort of piggybacking on these recent comments about the employer side of the ledger. Is there anything in the works as far as, I don't know if it would be through WRC, if it would be through labor pension, worker protections? Because, the exploitation, for the lack of a longer description, of permit holders, the threat, the guillotine hanging over your head of, you don't like it, you better start packing your bags. And I believe it was sometime in the last 12 months, there was even an example that you had on your show with a young Caymanian fellow and the construction site saga, where he went to DLP and they basically, their first default is to call the employer. The employer says, no, there's nothing here to see. And they sort of dust it off to the side and tell the worker that they're on their own. So with I wouldn't say harsher seems to be too hard a word. The tightening of the rules on immigration that we're going through here in phase one on the worker side or on the individual side, is there something coming for worker protections? I know, Sandra, you bang the drum quite regularly for consumer protections. And things like, rent control boards and things of that nature, which are external from employment, but specifically speaking to the employment and the employers. There was a caller that called in and said, these fast food workers get fired, and well, they're easily replaced. So if that person is displaced for no problem, regardless of what their employment is there going to be an improved avenue for employees to protect themselves from employers, or are there going to be protections built in to, provide more protections for the workers? Because this field is slanted completely in the opposite direction right now. We're just wondering if there's any leveling in the playing field that's in the cards coming forward. I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the gentleman coming on this morning to enlighten us as to the changes that are coming. Thank you.
Yes, appreciate it. Thank you too. All right. So lots of areas of concern. We get calls all the time from, employees. We even had Mr. Jim on the show about all the stuff that he had gone through, documenting and reporting what a really poor employer had done to multiple workers. And in the end, I think they just paid a fine. Mr. Jim was obviously not satisfied with that, but what's being done to ensure greater protections. And again, it is a balancing act, obviously, but greater protections for those in the labor force, in the workforce.
So Sandy, and this would likely fall within the further reforms that we were talking about in relation to the labor law, the Labor Act. We haven't actually considered that yet, or those proposed changes yet. At a caucus level, but that is something that is coming in the next few months. I don't know if CO has any more specific time frame than that.
Yeah, so we are actually waiting for a slot on the caucus agenda to bring the policy recommendations around that. Some are, so currently under the Labor Act, there's no administrative fine, so everything has to go to court. Again, it's not strict liability offenses, so you have to prove intent and all the other bits. So there are some aspects that we want to deal with swift administrative fines. We also want to do strict liability where that's appropriate. So it happened, and there's something that has to be done about that. We also have spoken, and we're working very closely with our colleagues at DCI, Health Insurance Commission, as well as CBC. Those joint groups are dealing with some of these companies of convenience and work permits of convenience and so on. So I know that our DCI colleagues as well are looking at, why would one individual need 5 trading as cleaning companies? Why not one trading? So where there's a beneficial owner who is the mischief maker, they're looking at ways to be able to deal with that as well. So we are zeroing in on that, but there are some bits. So the reason that employers can get away with a lot of stuff is that the penalty comes so long afterwards when you go through the court system that the justice is not swift. So that's part of the recommendations we have coming, but that's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Yes. All right, let's continue through our slides so we can get as much information in as well. It's been a real balancing act this morning between your questions and comments and the information, and I think it's been a great show. So slide number 9, requirement to file annual declaration. So explain to us what this is all about.
So the annual declaration, so currently only persons who have PR 8 year have to file an annual declaration. So effectively what it says is, I submit this document under the risk of penalty to say it's all truthful, that these circumstances still apply. So, and these have been detailed in the regulations. So effectively, all of the criteria under which you've been granted your facility or the criteria under which you can lose your facility, you have to attest that all of those still apply. You haven't been convicted, you hadn't, so that down the list. So those are due annually at the anniversary date, and we'll be communicating that to individuals. So they'll get a notice to say, here is your annual declaration that you need to file. And that then forms part of the compliance checks that go forward and so on. So it's been expanded from just the 8 year to persons who are married to Caymanians and persons that are in civil partnerships with Caymanians and some of the high net worth PR facilities as well, to ensure that they still maintain their investment, they hadn't sold their property or their business and so on. So those are new sort of continuous checks that
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And again, that's important because I'm always surprised at the number of people who don't know, even for RERC, when a marriage has broken down, that they have an obligation to inform WRC of the breakdown of the marriage. Just shocking. It's like, wow. So maybe if they have to do an annual declaration, that'll help them to, when they're signing that document, to remember what it is. Because again, you're having to now do it on an annual basis. All right. So this person says another observation is in the corporate sector, such as in corporate and trust services, is the securing of what type of role before an applicant is actually going to fill in the workplace. For example, there seems to be an unwritten rule that lower to mid-level corporate and trust jobs are reserved for Caymanians. These roles have titles like trust officer, corporate officer, and their senior or managerial derivatives. What is happening, however, is that employers get around this earmarking by applying for broader positions such as client service officer or manager. This leaves a foreign worker to be deployed wherever needed, effectively displacing locals. How could WRC address this? How closely are they actually scrutinizing this issue?
Yeah, so we do know that there's some mischief at some bad actors. I can say that within the financial services arena, we have companies that their entire senior management team are all Caymanians, generational Caymanians at that. It's an area that we're looking at. One of the issues is around this issue of job descriptions and what that entails. There's some subjectivity to it. The youth parliamentarians did a really good job debating this. I think it was last month down there, as what is the merit of standardized job descriptions? And we can argue both sides of that. What I can encourage individuals, and they can even do it anonymously, if there are concerns with that we need to know about, if you don't want to put your name to the pen and do it, there's a anonymous submission form on the Works website that you can send in your information without attaching any details to it. We can then take a look at it. And to go back to the previous caller's question in relation to DLP going into an employer and causing the complainant to have an issue, one of their process bits is that you have to sign to say, I'm okay with you advancing this to the level that you're going to have to go in. And in some cases, if it's a larger organization, we can do that in such a way that we request all of the records and there's no way of knowing which one it is. But in case of smaller employers, single employers, yeah, you would have to give us the okay to go ahead and make those inquiries on your behalf. So it is a balancing act in that regard.
Yeah. So, folks, as we always say on this program, if you don't speak up, you know, see something, do something about it. There comes a point when you have to help yourself. The system is never going to be perfect, but you've got to make complaints. We've got to expose these, as we say, bad players in the system. Lisa Prendergast makes the following comment. Yes, corrupt board members are breaking the law and they should be prosecuted and should not be on any boards. A criminal that breaks the law is someone that should not be on boards. And of course, we wholeheartedly support that position, as we have seen instances in the past. But Caymanians are very soft, honey chill. They'd be like, oh, he's a senior citizen, let's just forgive him, when he was a board member and broke the law. Tisk tisk. We got to get it together. We got to have higher standards across the board. All right, here's another anonymous question. Why are PR holders allowed to constantly get into trouble with the law without having their status looked at, regardless if they're married to Caymanian? If they have no job and a long rap sheet in the law, it should be looked into.
So there are new provisions that came in on May 1st that deal with applications for persons who, in some cases, are no longer married to Caymanians, but retain their RARC on the basis that they have a Caymanian child. So we've introduced the requirement for those now to be subject to a test. So you merely don't get to keep that facility by donating DNA. So you have to be, you can't be an abusive parent. You can't be someone that's not actually having family life, that is not providing for their children and so on. And that process then becomes an area where we can then revoke based on that. The issue with revoking it is always this right to family life balance that we have to go through. So those new facilities which introduce our role for our folks over at DCR and also with DCFS to play in that is something that we're looking at. We also have information sharing as it relates to financial assistance. So if the Caymanian ex-spouse who has care and custody of the child is applying for financial aid because the RARC holder is no longer providing, then that could be grounds for revoking that as well. So those are some areas that, like I said, my mother used to tell me that she was one of 12 children, and her parents only had to beat one for the rest to fall in line. So we want to start making some examples of individuals, and that
yes.
would be the proof.
Was it? I have to ask a question, though, Mr. Howell. Was it always the eldest one that got the beating?
She was the eldest one, so I believe that was the case. I'm the youngest.
Oh my goodness, yes. Woo, tough. All right, let's talk about arrangements of convenience. And by the way, Mr. Amelia requested a kaboom on that one. We absolutely love it. I feel like we could have been doing kabooms all day, but no, I was, as you were saying that, my mind turned to an individual we were talking about yesterday, convicted in a Tortuga robbery. And, she's in prison now, got a 10-year sentence. And she's talking about she's ready to come out next year after just spending a couple years in prison and living her best life in the Cayman Islands. Not someone who's ever really taken care of her children, has lived in NAU. I mean, all this stuff is in the public domain. So not sharing anything private, but I'm thinking, how does this type of person realistically expect that they're going to continue to be part of the Cayman community? Even though they found, some Caymanian fool to marry, I think that we absolutely need to start putting our foot down and say, you know what, you shouldn't have the privilege of being in this country. Even if you are married to Caymanian, Jamaica is only a 45-minute flight away. Go and, visit them if you choose to stay married. So I'm glad to see that some undesirables who, especially ones that they have gone as far as actually breaching the laws, taking advantage of NAU, demonstrated that they do not mean this community any good at all, that maybe their legal situation can be reviewed. All right. Arrangements of convenience. This is marriages and civil partnerships that we're now talking about. I know you talked about some tightening of the legislation as it comes to marriage officers. Specific to this immigration reform as of May 1st, what now has been tightened already?
So as of May 1st, and the regulation comes in, the marriage officers, we went through a process of giving them all sort of training and tips of what to look for when they're doing that. And folks will do differing levels of that. I know some of the priests and the pastors have their whole process that brings in premarital counseling and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. But the regulation makes it a requirement for them to collect certain information from the person seeking to get married or enter into a civil partnership, and to then share that information. Mm-hmm. The portal that folks use to register and request licenses now has a landing page that has the disclaimers of these individuals are suspected to be trying to enter into an arrangement of convenience, and be on the lookout for them. And so that information is being shared, and this regulation change would mandate that the marriage officers and those who perform the civil partnership agreements have a reporting requirement for any of these suspect applications. So that's one there. The bit that I talked about in relation to the RARC as well is another one, and the annual declarations then also adds to that, because you may pretend for a bit, but pretending for 15 years is a long time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Romelia. I saw your comments. Let's go on now to another slide. And if you've been waiting to send in a burning question, now is your chance to do so, because we're going to start wrapping things up here shortly. So FOSS financial information, what is this all about?
So when we had the previous limit of 3,500, we would see an individual whose work permit application came in and they were being paid 2,500. They want to bring a child or a spouse over, and their employer writes in to amend their work permit to add a dependent, and now their salary is exactly 3,500. So this provision makes it absolutely crystal clear that there is a fine of up to $10,000 or 1-year imprisonment for falsifying, in particular, financial information as it relates to financial standing and earning powers. And I can't say that is, again, somebody asked about whether or not folks can knock on the door and check on a marriage. Submissions have been requested to show bank statements showing that there's been this consistency as well coming in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also adding that as a potential ground for revocation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Even stronger disincentive.
Deterrence. Yes, absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Good morning. Ariel says, hi, Auntie Sandy, gentlemen. If parents are not married and other parents who or expats look after their child or children, how is a person can stay in the island, specifically the child is a Caymanian minor? So I think that this is where individuals have a child, people are having anchor babies to be able to claim, the right to remain in the Cayman Islands. And oftentimes they're even negligent in their parenting duty, but they still use that, anchor baby to be able to stay. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So that exactly is where the social inquiry is done by the DCFS, or in the case of an incarcerated person, DCR. And they would then make a recommendation to the decision makers, as they would to the courts. So I get reusing that same sort of bit there. But in absence of that prior, once they made that claim of right to family life for minor Caymanian child minor, they would then be able to maintain their RARC up to the age of 18. even if they were no longer married to that Caymanian spouse. So,
Right.
so that now becomes a test of the facts at that point.
Yes. And her second part here is saying that if they're not married, does the person who has the child with the Caymanian, do they need a work permit, or do the immigration has something for the other parent?
So they would maintain their RERC, which gives them right to remain and work for any employer in any occupation without.
Well, this is unmarried individuals, so they haven't committed to being married.
If they have not married, then yes, they would be subject to the work permit regime, and that doesn't apply. Yeah. But if they received RERC and have a Caymanian child, a child with a Caymanian spouse, then that would remain pending the other bits there.
Perla says, good morning. How we will know when enforcement pops up, how confidentiality still works. You know, Caymanians love to gossip, asking for a friend. So it sounds like she wants to report someone, but of course, people always have concerns that when they report, it comes back in terms of who actually made the report. Do you guys accept anonymous reporting when it comes to work-related, immigration, marriages of convenience, and so on?
Absolutely. You can make that anonymously through the website. I can tell you, my WhatsApp blows up with stuff that people are saying, I'm telling you, so you can pass this along. So, and I even get that from members of parliament, you know, so they'll drop me a little nugget and I'll pass along. And so. All
right, we're going to start to wrap it up here. Simone says, are they still granting spouse permit if you're already on island? I'm not quite sure.
Following that one, but
Simone, you might need a bit more information. Aisle 2025 says, when will it become a requirement by law that expats be paid into a bank account? There's way too much money leaving the country. It doesn't benefit us. Well, that's not going to stop it from leaving the country, but I think from an evidentiary perspective, sometimes even proving what someone makes, it's hard to do when they're being paid in cash and you don't actually get to see the transaction. So you can't stop people from moving their money, though.
Not everybody has bank accounts.
Yeah.
And we are importing labor just like we would import concrete. So the persons come here, they have no hope of long-term tenure in Cayman. They have to be sending their money back because we've imported labor. We have to pay for it. So that's a two-way street.
Yep. So Phineas says immigration used to do in-house check on marriages, putting both persons in separate rooms and questioning them. I'm supposing if that's still necessary that it can still be done. I don't see why not. All right. Final call of the day. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yes, just quickly, two things that I wanted to say, Sandy. As all of these hotels come on board, and like Mr. Roy say, is straining our country with all of the work permits that are going to be granted for all of these new hotels, Mandarin, Hyatt 1, Hyatt 2, down the road. We're going to have all of these people coming in here. We've already got them in here. But what is happening here is what I would like to say this. Number one, Mr. Walling Whitaker had a program where he could research when they came into the country. We knew the backgrounds of these people coming, if they had criminal records, if they had went to prison for all various types of crime. And that program, I'm not sure if he still has it. He wants to sell it, but maybe a talk with him, because immigration right now needs to be expanded in the task force area. We need to have a team that is looking into this, because we have a lot of criminals here working in this country. And we see that now where people are being found in immigration and, they're being prosecuted, teachers teaching children and raping children. We have them in the police force where we find out that they're also into all kind of things that are coming here. We're importing people here. We got enough on our hands with our own Caymanians. We do not need to have criminals coming here and working and pretending that they're, because of the color of their skin, and working for organizations. And we don't know who the hell these people are. This is something that we need to definitely expand on with work. And the only how to do it, you have to have a new force. And let me tell you something. It should be in connection, or they should be working together with the Commissioner of Police. It should be a group of people set up that are working in connection with both of them, working together to actually investigate and find out who these people are and let them know, because we have them here. We're here tearing down the few that we know about, and when it comes up and when it pops up, rare. But we've got people all over. We've got them in government. We've got them in the private sector, and they have major criminal records that have committed various all types of crimes. And we've imported them here and saying they're great people here working. And no one is looking into this. This needs to be done.
All right, my dear. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. One more question here. We'll do just a few rapid fire. Jacqueline Scott says, what about children whose parents are here in work permits, but the parents are not earning enough salary to add their kids to their work permit? However, there's a grandparent on island who has already obtained, obtained up, I don't know what that's supposed to be, or PR, and the grandparent applies to the court for a residence order for the child under the 2012 children's law. What happens to those kids when they become an adult under the residence order has expired? What will be the children's status at the time? That's kind of a complex situation.
Yeah, so if the permanent residency holders are the legal guardians awarded by the court, but they're adding dependents to their PR, they would still have to fall under the $5,000 limit. And if we have a difference there, then we would have to petition the court to deal with the court order, the residency order, if that would preclude us from removing them from the jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah. And for specific questions, obviously that's a very, very specific situation. Is there someone that people can email? Is there a Q&A section on the website where they can email an immigration officer? They can go in and see someone and give them, their documentation. Like someone sent in a question this morning, and I immediately, when I saw the question, had additional questions, right? So these things are not always straightforward where you can get a response on a show like this. This is not the best platform to get your specific questions answered. But is there an avenue where, because one of the complaints has always been every time you call and you speak to an immigration officer, you get a different answer. So how do you go about getting the right answer and one that you can actually trust?
Yeah. So my caveat to getting the right answer is the devil's in the details, and your circumstances may have 5 days difference that put you in a different law than the person next to you. So the answers would depend on in sometimes very, very technical aspects. We don't advise on the law. We give information on the law. In some cases, individuals need to go see an immigration lawyer who can advise them and give them their counseling on that bit. The general email address for work is wrc@gov.ky. You can flip the questions in there. There is a separate question and answer section that we're actually moving to the immigration reforms bit as well, so that you have it in both locations. That if we get the same questions numerous times, then we can build that out and add the questions in there. But in some cases, it really does mean going through very detailed when people arrive on the island, when did they leave, how long they were gone for. So if somebody's not going into all those details with you, they really can't give you an informed answer, which is my caveat. It always depends.
Yes. So Candy says, so you're telling me if I report a person I don't like with no evidence about their marriage and immigration will accept it, I would like to know. I have a few to report. Candy, I'm pretty sure you heard absolutely nobody say that. The point was you can report anonymously, but for your complaint to be taken seriously, as I always say on this program, the more evidence that you provide, the better. And then that agency will carry out its own independent investigation. So just because you say it's so, don't mean it's so, right? So they and of course, they can carry out a more thorough investigation if you have further details to provide to them. Thanks, Perla. Have a good day at work. Ariel says, so I'm talking about work permits have term limits like domestic helper. So how the other parent can stay if a term limit is only 9 years? I'm a little bit confused, Ariel. So your first question was about non-married individuals having a child in Cayman, and then one parent who's on a work permit would be subject to a term limit. Well, yes, and they can't stay here forever, right? So sometimes you have to actually change your legal status or you accept the consequences of not doing so. So if you're here, Mr. Howell, and you have a Caymanian child, right? Say you're the father and you decide for whatever reason you're not going to get married to the mother of that child, who I guess would have to be Caymanian. Can you just stay here forever on a work permit and never get rolled over, never leave, enjoy the life as though you were married to the mother? I would hope not.
No, term limits would apply if you're a non-married individual. You could apply for PR, and there are points that you get in PR for having a Caymanian child, but you still have to qualify for 110 points with all the other factors in there. But no, if you're on work permit and it comes to its natural end, and you're unmarried to Caymanian, you have a Caymanian child, there is no facility that allows you to automatically bypass your term limit and keep working.
Yeah, I mean, God, that would be a floodgate to open.
Yeah. My career is all over the place.
Yes, exactly. All right, my son was adopted at age 3 and he had a Cayman passport. Does he need to be acknowledged? So this is a good question because, I mean, I even said, what was your status at the time of adoption? But of course, a passport is a travel document and it does not confer any sort of immigration status necessarily on an individual.
Yeah.
So if he needs to be acknowledged, and he can be, then you should probably get the letter.
Adoption would work in the same instance as a birth, but it would depend on what the mother's or the parents' nationality was at the time of the adoption. But acknowledgement absolutely is what you should apply for.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, this has been an absolutely fantastic show. Still holding strong at 517 for 10 o'clock in the morning. That's not too shabby. So I want to thank all of you for tuning into the program. We'll do some clips, some shorts out of this. Johan was calling for us to turn up at 9:30. We were turned up the whole show. Johan, it was just a different kind of turn up today. It was all about educating yourselves and learning what these immigration changes are. And I want to personally thank the entire department, Miss Martha, Tatiana, and everybody else who has put together these amazing slides and the information booklet, and the Honorable Wayne Panton, Parliamentary Secretary for Caymanian Employment and Immigration, obviously Mr. Wesley Howell, who's the Chief Officer for the Ministry of Caymanian Employment and Immigration. They've obviously been working extremely hard. We're not going to get things perfected, but I think we're taking some pretty good steps in that direction to move the needle a little bit closer. Now, let me also remind all of you that if you're an employer, a Caymanian, you're taking out permits for people, you have a responsibility, not to your bank account, not a responsibility to take advantage of people and, doing the most to further your own interests, but to be fair, to be responsible, to be a good employer. Don't abuse the work permit system, because let's be honest, every single person, every time we hear these complaints, that person, whether they're a status holder or born Caymanian or whatever, that person is a Caymanian that's actually taking advantage of the system, and they make it bad for all of us. So I want to encourage people to try to do the right thing. And if you have any questions, the entities are obviously there for you. And, it's in your best interest to be compliant. It just makes all of our lives a lot easier. We have one final question. Let's see if we can squeeze this one in, and then we're going to let our guests go because they have been incredibly patient. So let me just pull this one up. In the meantime, we really appreciate you both coming on the program today. We're sorry that Mr. Jeremy had an emergency and couldn't join us, but hopefully on another day we can have him come on as well. All right. Ariel, yes, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Panton, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if you were.
I'm just waiting on my question to come up. I don't know. You haven't been on the show in a little while now. I'm gonna be calling you afterwards to get you back on in your regular schedule. But I know you've been busy.
Changes, though.
I was gonna say, if you've noticed that we've leveled up and doing a couple tweets.
It does get a bit difficult to read both questions and comments at the same time. You're really testing our multitasking skills.
Don't worry. I got it. All right. So this one says, hi, Sandy. If you were married to Caymanian a few years ago, okay, got divorced, but expat holds residency certificate on the ground of the Caymanian child, then they get remarried to Caymanian, what will change for the expat parent?
At that point, they could apply for RERC under the
new marriage.
Caymanian spouse. If that passes the test and that's granted, then they would be back in the RARC holder perspective. If they have applied for continuation because of the Caymanian child, then that would run its course until the child turns 18 as well, or it's lost through one of the other loss provisions on the honor declaration bits. But yeah, they can go on. So yeah, if you Caymanian, you married non-Caymanian, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
ethical reasons, right? So
exactly. Yeah. Because once again, the marriages of convenience, there's a Caymanian in that relationship. So thank you to Ariel. She says, thank you, Auntie. And the gentlemen, have a wonderful and blessed weekend. We want to thank again. Final words from our guests before we let them leave. And we're going to be wrapping up the show because I got a ton of paperwork to do, trying to get life back on schedule after a vacation.
CEO, you go first.
Yeah, I just want to thank PS Panton for coming on show with me. I think it shows really well the support from the NCFC government as it relates to issues, that solutions, approving and championing solutions to burning issues that we're having as a community, as a department, and so on. I want to thank the staff and the ministry, especially Ms. Rolna Acosta. She is the senior policy advisor who did a lot of the work with the drafters on this legislation, the regulations, and so on. So very kudos to her. Director Scott and his team, they have been keeping the lights on with the applications while changing the systems out and all of that. So thanks to him and his team for all of their hard work. Computer services, those are guys that were working overtime to get new fees in for a Friday morning, last Friday morning, a week ago. Anybody else that I've forgotten, the legal drafting team, just thanks to all the folks that have worked tirelessly. I keep saying, I go around here and people saying these civil servants are so lazy. I'm like, I don't know who you're all looking at, but the folks that I interface with are doing way over and above what they need to be doing. So just thankful for their support and their efforts.
Yep, absolutely.
And Sandy, let me add my thanks as well to the entire team, and in particular, CEO Howell, who is clearly an oracle on these issues. I know sometimes he might doubt himself, but that's not very often, and I certainly don't ever doubt him. It is just a pleasure working with him and his team. They are just amazing people. They work, as he said, they work very hard, and they have really delivered on this. There was some criticism aimed mainly at the politicians about delaying the implementation of this, but this is complicated stuff. You can tell by the number of questions and the various scenarios. Human beings can get themselves in all kinds of situations that sometimes you can't even anticipate. So it is very complicated. The issues it is difficult to try to ensure that we're fair to everybody. These are human beings with emotions. These are their lives. It's critically important issues. So we're trying to balance all of these issues, and I think the team has done a really good job of making recommendations to caucus and cabinet. So on behalf of Minister Miles and the wider government, I want to thank the team for the incredible job that they've done. I also really want to thank the people who have listened in this morning, who have participated, sent in questions. We really, really appreciate that. These are, this is an opportunity for learning both ways, for us to learn from you and your perspectives, and also for you to gain the knowledge and clarity that you need on the issues that relate to the various changes. So thank you. Thanks to everybody. And today is the end of the week. Let's hope everybody has a very safe, and happy and enjoyable weekend. And let's get into next week. Let's continue to support each other, because God knows we live in a beautiful paradise in this world, and we only want to make it better. All right. So
yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you everybody who has participated.
Thank you. And one final word, feel good Friday. Somebody else thinks that you're looking awfully good this morning. They say, good morning. Is that Mr. Panton? Did he do surgery or is he on a diet? I told you, you look like you've lost a few pounds. Looking good, looking good.
Well,
Keep it up.
let me tell you this. I have decided that the elevators in this building don't exist. I take the stairs, and I try to do that every day. And
wonderful.
Yesterday I decided I was going to be a little bit more ambitious, and I started running up the stairs. Halfway up, I thought to myself, what if I trip? Of course, what happened? I tripped. So be careful. Don't be too ambitious.
Self-fulfilling, yeah.
Yourselves, but this is the Caymanian Employment and Immigration Ministry, but I also serve in the health and environment and sustainability.
Yeah,
and we are also promoting the Move It program, because it is critical for our health, and the older you get, the more important it is. So I am trying to be part of that team that leads by example, if that's possible, and maybe belatedly, but it's important for quality of life as well. So if you want to see me, you're not going to find me in the elevator lobby. You're going to find me on the stairs.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. And we have a Fit Over 50 group that we're doing. We do the Step app, and we're challenging each other every day. I've gone back to, some people might have noticed, but I've gone back now to standing during the morning show, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. I'm not going to be sitting in that chair for that amount of time. So little changes make a huge and humongous difference in our health, and absolutely health is wealth, as we always say. So again, it's showing. I mean, I noticed it right away as I saw you this morning, and obviously other people noticed it as well. So happy Mother's Day this weekend as well. I know you will probably, yes.
Incredible mothers out there.
Yep. Mr. Panton's obviously the MP for Newlands as well. So I'm sure, what do you have planned for because you guys always do something, especially for the seniors, but what do you have planned for Mother's Day for them?
Yeah, so we have a couple of things going on. To be honest, I'm probably going to look like I don't know the details, and that's because I really don't know all the details. But we have a team in the office who are working on providing gift packages and sets and stuff that are going out to our list of our mothers, particularly those that are older and those that would really benefit from that.
Yes. All right. Now someone says yes, they can testify that he's been walking up 5 flights of stairs in GAB, that's the government admin building, multiple times a day. Fantastic.
So I came in at 6:30 this morning, and the chief officer on another ministry, that's Dr. Basdeo. He came in, and we both took the stairs up from the basement all the way up to the 5th floor.
Wow.
So I said to him on the way up, I said, listen, we're going to have a long conversation until we get to about the top of the 3rd floor, and then I'm going to be listening.
Then you're out of breath.
Because I can't walk the rest of that and breathe and talk.
All right. Well, I'm going to look forward to.
So, encourage people to.
No, absolutely.
Keep moving.
Yeah, so maybe I'll look.
Now, I'm going to spend the rest of the day walking around.
Yeah, get up and do some squats, and maybe I'll look forward to seeing you in the pickleball court soon. Then,
yeah, maybe.
Wonderful. All right, folks. Again, big shout out to the Caymanian Employment and Immigration Ministry. We've had the Chief Officer, Mr. Wesley Howell, along with the Honorable Wayne Panton, JP MP, who is Parliamentary Secretary. That's one of his Parliamentary Secretary, ministries that he works with. We want to thank them both so much. This has been an amazing show, and we look forward to more. And I did see Anthony's comments. He said earlier, wait a minute. Did I hear right when Mr. Wesley said that he's coming back on the show for something else? Will we see him more often? I think it's fair to say that you'll be back, right?
We're starting the rounds on pension law reforms, and we'll be back out to talk about labor soon, hopefully. And we still need to deal with the PR point system and so on. So lots of talking going on.
Yeah, we love it. We absolutely love it. That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, take care.
All right. And yes, Anthony was saying, oh my gosh, Sandy, what magic did you do to get them on the program? All I can tell you is there was no magic, but just tenacity. You know, we just stick with it. We keep asking, keep messaging people. And thankfully, they made some time in their schedule to come on. So I'm so happy that they did, because this was really quite a good educational show. And I think we learned lots. So folks, the weekend is here, Mother's Day weekend, no less. I'm going to encourage all of you to please be safe out there. You know, I know a lot of people will be brunching. Have a good time at brunch and be safe. My mother-in-law is actually here. Everywhere I go, people see me with her and they said, oh, is this your mom? And we just say yes. At this point in time, we can't even explain any further. We're just like, yep, that's my mom. Let's just keep it moving. So she's here. She spent her birthday this year with us and now Mother's Day this weekend. So we're going to be taking her out, obviously, for Mother's Day brunch as well. So if you're in the same place, we may see you. Yeah, I've got a ton of paperwork that I need to get through today. I'm back to work, full force. And of course, there's always a bit of catching up to do after you've completed, a vacation. You guys know how it is. It's like you need a vacation from your vacation, but it's been a great couple days back already. And I'm so pleased to be back in the saddle, so to speak. So we'll see you guys on Monday. So remember now, we shifted the discussion about Cayman Prep and all of what's going on there to Monday's show. So Monday, we'll do a full dissection. I've already got tons of letters and comments and stuff for that program. But if you were still waiting to send in stuff, please send in your comments naturally, anonymously. And I do invite people to provide as much detailed information as possible. Now, I'm aware that some of you complaining are still parents and administrators and teachers at Cayman Prep. So you're concerned about your identity being disclosed in any way, shape, or form. So we will do our best. We will do our best to, reword what you say, perhaps, and how you say it, if that's a real concern for you. But you've got to come forward, because I don't know anything about Cayman Prep. I don't go there. I'm not a teacher there. So the details that I need to be able to have a good show on this topic on Monday, those details need to come from you all who actually have the knowledge and experience. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Miss Sandy and Cayman Pete.
Hello.
Good morning. Wonderful.
Yes,
show.
ma'am. Thank you.
So much wonderful changes and new information. I'm starting to enjoy this. I'm telling you. I have a question though. I will be in fast like Caymanians.
Yes.
What's up with it? Am I the only one that saw that young lady up on your screen?
What young lady?
You didn't have one young lady up on your screen, like in one brown top and one black insole?
On my screen during the show today?
Yeah.
I don't recall. Up on the screen? I don't think so.
Oh,
okay. What did it say anything? It was just a picture? What was it?
It seems like it was a video or something. I thought I was the only one who was seeing that feed.
I didn't see it myself, so I'm not quite sure.
On the side of the screen, yeah. I was wondering if I would have one seeing it up above on the side of the screen.
I don't know. Not ringing the bell for me. Not sure, but if you go back and you see it, just screenshot it and send it to me. But I'm not aware of what that was.
Okay, I go back and watch it because I usually do. I'll go back and watch it. Maybe my phone playing tricks on me. But I just call in to say a big shout out to Honorable Panton and Mr. Howell. I mean, wonderful work, great work. Over here, loving it. Good job. And always a good job to you. No more vacations, please. Don't want to be bored.
Not till late September. Late September, we got to do one more.
I beg you, don't be too long. You hear, because only when you leave, the things pop off.
I know.
Miss Sandy would say,
I know.
Miss Sandy here. And I know you're back and you're still not able to catch up because there's a lot of stuff
I know
you're not catch up on yet.
Yeah, I know.
But either way, we love having you back and enjoy your vacation. You need the rest time.
Thank you so much.
But love the changes, and continue, Miss Sandy.
Thank
We
you.
can't do this without you.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you very much. So Dominique says, what about the minister? He's actually off island. He actually is traveling, I think, for official business. So he would not have been able to make this event. But Dominique, we're going to keep working on him. You know what I'm saying? We can keep it up. I mean, Anthony had a little laugh earlier. He's like, oh my God, your numbers killing Radio Caymanian. I know. But we can just keep working on it. We're going to keep it positive as much as we can. And like I said, tenacity is my middle name. So I'm confident that one day, yes, one day, we're putting this positivity out in the universe, that we will have the minister on the program. Look at today. Today was such a wonderful show. So incredibly positive. There was no negativity here. You know, people asking questions, people getting answers. You guys were educating yourselves. I absolutely loved it. And that's really, you know, we have shows of all different types. And I think that sometimes people confuse, you know, like your hand, oh, let's turn up. Now it's 9:10. No, we don't have to turn up today. Just because it's a Friday, we were in education mode. There was no need to turn up. We turned up the education dial. Because I know myself, I learned a lot today. And it looks like a lot of you did as well. So it's all good. This is what Anthony, he said, did Mr. Howell say that he will return next time? Boy, Sandy, you sure did pull some strings for this panel lineup. Anthony, you make me laugh. And laughter is good for the soul, honey child. We'll keep it up. Belika was saying, could Mr. Wesley facilitate workshops for immigration consultants and charge them? Well, I know that they will do them for free. Believe it or not, they do go into organizations and do presentations and stuff for free. They don't even charge them. So that's a great benefit. And so, yeah, take advantage of these things, employers. This was Anthony being salty this morning, and it made me chuckle. He said, Radio Caymanian would never get that volume of listeners all month collectively. Good job, Sandy. Aw, bless their little heart. Man, sometimes I am envious of them getting like an unlimited budget. Oh, we just added $2-3 million. Have you guys seen their new studio, like the furniture? I mean, it has nothing to do with the content, but I'm just saying the furniture looks good. I'm loving the furniture. I'm like, what? How much did that cost? Where'd y'all get that from, honey child? We can't afford it. So, you know, we're going to just do what we can do. But, you know, it has nothing to do with the content that you offer people. Honestly, we have very little here, and we still, I think, do a phenomenal and amazing job with the little tidbits that we have. All right. Don't forget, Auntie's application is in for her own radio station. They emailed me while I was on vacation. I saw the email. I thought, I'll get back to you later. So I'm going to respond now today to their email, their second email again, because I just need that application to get to the board. We got the technical people who are ready. You know, we're going to get there. But you got to go through the process. So I'm okay. The process is long and laborious, and it is what it is. And it's going to cost me a lot of money. But we're going to do it regardless. Okay. Oh, can we please wish Miss Mary Lawrence a very happy birthday today? OMG. She's 86 years young. I will be posting her up on her birthday feed. Oh, she is so beautiful. Oh my God. I love Miss Mary. I hope that at 86, I'm looking as good as her. I'd probably need to lose about 60 pounds first, but she is so professional and she's beautiful and she always looks so good. She's just, oh my gosh, I love her so much. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Miss Brenda.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm giving thanks as usual. How are you?
Yes, I can't complain.
Okay. Well, welcome back from your holiday.
Yes, thank you so much. I haven't had time to really talk about it yet, but
yeah,
I had to hit the ground running.
That's okay. Anyway, off your topic and subject there today. Some time ago, I called the show and spoke about this mess with Flo and these email addresses.
Oh,
right?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes. I guess you saw that article, huh?
Well, I didn't need to see the article because unfortunately I was one of the victims of the aborted email address, I should say. And I kept speaking about it, hoping that, well, to be honest, I thought that, well, I still call them off, right? I thought that, you know, they knew about this had been, you know, blessed by them and so on. And it is most unfortunate that these companies are being allowed to do this kind of stuff. They obviously have no respect for the authorities. And I mean, it's cost me a lot of my time, you know, having to advise people of my new email address. And you obviously ain't going to remember everyone, you know. I just hope that I got all of the really important ones. But anyway, so then I think I may have mentioned that I went to Flow because, you know, they decided without any consultation with us or anyone else that they would only send email, bills by email. So I went in to have that updated, and the girl there, she thought, I said, no. And I explained to her, she said, they didn't know. They were not told, okay? So the staff at Flow that you're paying, they don't even know that this was happening. And they work for Flow. They're not contracted people. So it's a lot that, you know, the authorities need to deal with them about. And I think that article really, it was an understatement as to the inconvenience that this has caused people. And the sad thing is, they still want to charge you because the emails are going to them. Then they're forwarding them to you. So when I ask, who do I need to speak to now about coming to take the stuff out of my house? Because I don't need their stuff anymore. I opened another account. Nobody can even tell me who I need to speak to do it. Okay? So until now, I'm still being charged for it. So it's a lot going on, and it's most unfortunate they didn't come to the public. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I get this feeling that when these things are happening and they don't do a press briefing or they don't come to the media to speak about it, they already know that they're doing something wrong. So I'm glad.
Well, I've been suggesting that to Flow for a long time, honey child. I feel like, you know, only so much you can talk before you're blue in the face.
Well, and the thing is, Flow is not the only one doing it. And when it first started, you know, everybody, well, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people spoke about it and said this should not be happening. But every company continues to do it. So every company that we're now dealing with, whether it's a telecommunication company, a courier company, everything is outsourced. Everything.
It's crazy. All right, my dear. Well, thank you so much, and happy Mother's Day to you this weekend. I hope that you have an enjoyable weekend.
I certainly will. I to be honest, I don't celebrate these things. You know, it's all about making money. I'm a mother every day from the day I became a mother, so I expect to be treated accordingly every day. My daughter's a mother also, so of course I have to, you know, acknowledge and appreciate her as a mother because I think she feels about it a little different than me. But like I said, I pass up on all the occasions except my birthday. So that is the one you will not be forgiven for.
That is unique to you, so we celebrate it.
Well, you know, it's my day.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my day.
Yep.
You know, they have all the others, but that is my day. And I know that you were peeking, so you saw, you know, my birthday right up and stuff, because you actually admitted that to me. You say the little bird. You said a little bird told you, but I know no little birdie didn't tell you that you were peeking.
Child, if people know how little time I actually spend on social media because it's so time consuming. But no, people do tell me. People be like, "Oh, you better not forget Miss Brenda's birthday." I said, thanks for keeping. Yes, I said, thanks for keeping me in line, honey child.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
But let me just say, I have a very, very small circle. I would say if it got any smaller, it would start to suffocate me. So, no, let me be clear now.
Yes.
There are certain people I would not expect to hear happy birthday from. But there are certain people, yes. And if I don't hear from them, that's an unforgiving sin. Okay? So, anyway. So
all right.
All right. But sorry.
Beautiful.
Just before I go, I wanted to ask a question here. This is, again, concerning Phil. Do you think that if you invited one of them on to speak about this thing, because obviously it has gone into effect, and maybe they could, I don't know if they can reverse it, or, whether there's something they can do. Because let me tell you what has happened. This is not for my benefit, but for the other who perhaps didn't know, or when I spoke about it, they didn't listen, Let me tell you what it has caused me. All of my email contacts have now been lost. Okay? So I'm starting over. So that, to me, that was the biggest inconvenience. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I would say to that, that has one of those addresses, any phone contact you have, try to get the person's email address also, store it in your phone, that at least you have backup,
Yeah. Yeah, I never really had a Candy Wacky email address, so I don't even know all the ins and outs of it, but that's really unfortunate.
Well, if it was them that started it, I mean, I would venture to say that I've had that over 25 years. Yeah, because it was before Hurricane Ivan. Yeah. So, back then that was it, and I just kept it. It was easy. And, the other scheming afterwards, like the Gmails, the Yahoo, well. And I mean, I do have a Gmail account because, you need one of them for the social media, but I only use that for the benefit of social media. The other one was, what I did for all of my personal stuff,
Yeah. I'm just seeing an email that came into my inbox at 7:59 this morning that makes me want to have an FOFO moment, but I'm going to leave it till Monday because nothing to do with Flo.
Oh, okay.
No. It's about a video of the drunken lawyer, and they can send me one long email about we're gonna have litigators will be appointed to look in the source of your tips. When people say stuff like that, some people are so, I don't even want to get started, Miss Brenda, but some people have a sense of entitlement that they really shouldn't have in this world.
Well, you know what?
You can imagine looking into the source of my tips. Nothing. Hold on now. Let's put this in context. You're a partner at Augier. You go out there to movies and get so fucking drunk that you dancing like a proper fool out in these streets. And your main concern is who told me that you were a partner at Augier? How about you don't go out here and act like a drunken fool and behave yourselves?
And
my God.
I have to say, I agree with you 100%. And maybe what you need to bear in mind is in today's world, everybody has got a smartphone. Okay?
It is shocking.
But I'm going to flip that on you completely. If it had been a Caymanian.
Oh, honey child, nobody would be saying anything about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Some of them believe that white is right. And one thing here, we're going to be fair to everybody. I don't care if you're green color. I don't care.
I don't know which litigators they're planning to use.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously an idiot.
I heard that they're short of criminal attorneys. So I don't know if they can pull them from. But I guess for them, they'll find them.
Well, you know, and they
they
think by using the term litigator that somehow that's going to have an impact on me, honey. Child, they have not been paying attention.
If I see something and I video it and I send it to you, you know what? I sent it to you. So come and ask me where I got it from and how I got it. And I thought you wouldn't share anything unless it is something I have witnessed. So that's my proof. That's the evidence. You want to fight with that, fight with that. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as long as it's not, nudity and stuff like that, then I've broken no laws.
Oh my God. These people are crazy. Yeah. Anyway, child, they got time. Not today. You know what I can tell them? Because I don't have time for an FOFO segment today. I'm going to say, not today, Satan. Get behind me. I'll deal with y'all on Monday.
Yeah, get behind me. I didn't issue you an invitation.
That's right.
Let me just say that went viral a long time ago. So as we say, the current's already out the pen.
Exactly, honey child. Don't worry, I'm going to give them some special attention on Monday because clearly they want it. That's the only reason why they'd be messaging me such foolishness.
Well, like I said, let's go back to our focus. Let's help people get this issue with flow sorted out because clearly a lot of people were not aware of it,
Yes.
Actually, I saw, I ain't going to name the person, I don't have permission, but I guess a lot of people saw it. They put up, a message yesterday, and they even said, I'm sorry, I have to go see I'm out on you, okay? And what I did, I shared that person's comment to a person that I know that works at Flow. Okay? I don't know if they read it, don't know if they looked at it, but I just figured, well, that's the best I can do. Hopefully that person will look at it and realize this is the problem we have. And that's assuming that employee is aware of what they were doing. Since the others didn't seem to know. But anyway, this is what is happening. We need a lot of reform done here. A lot. And if we don't speak out about it, nothing is going to be done, So that's my 75 cents worth today. And
thank you, ma'am.
Happy Mother's Day, happy weekend, and to your mother-in-law and your mother, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, my dear. Thanks very much. All right, folks. That's it. Happy weekend. Happy Mother's Day. Rhonda says, yes, take responsibility for your own bad behavior. That's lost on a lot of people. But Monday, we will dig into it, dive into it. So tune in Monday morning. All right. Until then, please have a safe and wonderful, fantabulous weekend. See you then.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.